do not favor them to sell the produce to the market. It could be lack of effective storage technologies, where we are looking at, for example, a horticultural farmer in Muranga producing French beans, and because of the sensitivity of that product, they are not able to sell to the market due to them not accessing the necessary technologies that are needed to extend the shelf life of these perishable goods. So there are quite a number of myriad of issues that are affecting small-scale farmers, including, them relying mostly on rain-fed agriculture. Basically, we are happy that as much as the government has allocated 60 billion, we look at how do we transition farmers from a scenario whereby they are relying on rain-fed agriculture to a scenario whereby they can harvest water and be able to irrigate their farms, or adopt technologies that are able to allow them to irrigate their farms, and therefore moving them from rain-fed agriculture to now what we call climate-smart agricultural practices.
Good. Now, Mr. Kingo, when you talk about issues of foreign exchange and what is earned, we look at matters of what we export. And it has been noted that over the years, Kenya has continued to heavily exporting raw materials. From where you sit, how then, how does it augur when it comes, or rather correlate with what we're getting as far as foreign exchange is concerned, but also how then does it hurt the agricultural value chain?
About the concept of exporting and importing in terms of agriculture and agriculture production, I would like us to look at it in this perspective. What makes someone import something that they can produce locally in terms of agriculture? It results in one thing: cost of production locally. Because someone would go for cheaper abroad than local when it is expensive. So how does the government fit in terms of production, cost of production for this farm input? They can be consumed locally and are not people to import. So one thing is that we're going amiss on that particular aspect. I had a conversation about where people are importing onions. When you look at, if I take you back to the concept of the 60 billion, 10.7 billion has been allocated to small-scale farming in terms of enhancing productivity. All that zeroes into cost of production. Yes. When you divide 10.7 billion, we have 47 constituencies. Do some quick maths for me. Yes. So 10.7 billion divided by 47, each county will get 220-something million.
Yes.
Then we have around 290 constituencies approximately.
Yes.
So you divide again, 220 million divided by 290 constituencies. So you can make, your guess will be as right as mine, how much each constituency will get. From that particular amount, we have administration fee. You're getting it. So how much will zero into this particular farmer? So that is where we get it wrong. So when it comes in terms of cost of products that we don't import, where does the government come in? Quality of seed that we get. And number one first, what do we plant? Where it come from? What? It needs a lot of some research work. We said 3% of that particular budget that we've been allocated can be used for research in terms of identifying which is the best crop that can be planted in this particular area. So number one, we get it wrong there as farmers. We plant the right thing, the wrong place. So we get it wrong at planting. So the seed that we get, they might not be quality of seed because they are not based on research. So we get it wrong on what we plant. The production process in terms of farm inputs, we still traditionals. The number of jembes that have been purchased, of course, they are more than the tractors that you can't. Yes. So the process of production is also poor, and the quality is poor. You will have a product that is even cheaper in this economy, but it cannot sustain even a village. So what do? People will go outside because they want to get economies of scale. So it's about the government to focus in the chain of production of agriculture. How much do we allocate in each and particular section? Then we work it reverse way. Let us work from the farmer. We have 10 billion. How much has been put on seed? Put administration aside. That way we will be having a conversation of improving agricultural farming. Because the amount might look as big when you talk about aggregate. But when you distribute it, you zero it into each particular section, then it gets real and nothing has been put. In that small scale farming, remove fish farming. Because if you talk about fish farming, a fish pond would be expensive than that will sit on square meter size of land compared to 5 acres of land that you're doing maize, for example. So when you talk about those expensive agricultural sector. So we realize the budget is not material and does not give us anything. So the agriculture that was triggered during the colonial period, the school of thought of farming that we have since colonial period are the same method that are bringing 34%. Then what prevents any other business person to go and get this product from abroad if they are cheaper? I'll just give you an example. Look at Liberia. 68% of the West African economy is contributed by Liberia. Liberia economy is based on agriculture. When you move to Ghana, Ghana is the fastest growing economy in Africa, yes, and even the world. Look at the strategy that they have tried to employ on agriculture. They have put them on ground. Farmers come together. Which road we're doing French beans sustain people? Which road prevents us from taking our food, our French beans to the highway to send them to whoever is transporting to export or whatever? So they sit down and say, our government, based on the administrative framework, we need this road done so that we can transport this product to wherever they are aggregated. You get the concept. So it is village-based strategies. That's where they are able to move. But when you read 10 billion to spread it, it's around 1 million per constituency. So if we read constituency-wise, then you know what you're talking about. A drop in the ocean.
I like what you're saying. Village strategies. Village strategies. Victor, now, those areas have already... Kingo there has come out quite strong, saying that we are expecting too much of this sector and doing so little. And in business, you told us you expect to reap what you invest. You cannot make money if you're not spending money. Now, let's address that issue, and we're talking about that smallholder farmer. What role then, other than government? I think we need to step away from government. We've already looked at the math. If you're talking about 1 million or so in budgetary allocation per constituency, looking at 80% of it is smallholder farmers, it's a high time we change the narrative and focus on other players, including the private sector. Representing the private sector, Victor, how then do we help? What role is the private sector playing to ensure that, you know, the farmer gets the adequate support, or rather necessary support, to actually make a living from farming? Thanks,
Regina. And I think from the private sector side, as much as we know government plays a facilitative role, there's an increasing call to ensure that private sector also facilitates some of these small-scale holder farmers. And we are looking at scenarios whereby basically private sector able to reach out to small-scale farmers, and we know some of these farmers in Kenya are not able to access quite a number of inputs that they rely on. So we are looking at a case whereby now private sector is innovating, is coming up with solutions for for these small-scale holder farmers. But what we are increasingly telling also the private sector is that they need to look at the cost, because basically, ensuring that these small-scale farmers are able to, to pay some of these products that the private sector companies provide. I want to look at the issue of seeds, as we've discussed. Of course, there's the issue of whereby, of recent past, we've heard of farmers cry that they've been sold to fake seeds in the market. They're buying fake seeds in the market. So what are the implications of such? So looking at also private sector coming together and being able to address some of the challenges that the small-scale farmer is facing on the ground. The other thing is that the cost of production, the cost of growing the crops has been increasing over the years. So what we are doing exactly at some of these institutions at private sector is we are calling them to innovate so that they provide low-cost technologies to farmers. And some of examples that I like to use is that, for example, Kenya is blessed with a lot of sun. But at the end of the day, you find most of the farmers in some of this region are using diesel-fired, water pumps or diesel-run water pumps. So what we call to private sector is to innovate solutions that are able to, provide climate-smart agriculture technologies. For example, in the recent case, when you go to these agricultural shows that are, in the counties, we see a lot of private sector coming up with innovative products on solar water pumping, for example. Recently, I was talking to a gentleman who's providing cold storage solutions to to farmers in Murang'a and Embu who grow avocado, and they are able actually to extend the shelf life of this product to up to 21 days. So basically within those 21 days, this farmer is able to go into the markets, look for market for his product, knowing that at the back of his mind that his product, wherever it is stored, it is safe and will be good for consumption by human beings. The other thing that we call on to the private sector is to collaborate with government, and we've seen public-private partnerships working well with government. For example, we've seen in the past whereby the government is working with private sector to grow maize in some sections of this Kenya, so that we increasingly improve our bread basket in terms of, we know most of Kenyans like their ugali, so looking at how do we have this product rather than relying on our neighbors to import. Majority of the private sector business people have been importing maize from Uganda, from Tanzania. So looking at how do we take care of the issues. The other thing that
before
okay.
you get to the other thing, you've mentioned two things that I want to bring your attention and rope in Mr. Kingo into is the issue of these subsidies programs. We've seen millions and billions put into this to just subsidize either it's the seeds or the fertilizer and such. Has it met its objectives? Because we've had subsidized fertilizer for the longest time as well as seeds. Mr. Kingo, has it had its desired effect?
Well, of course, I'll say no, and this would be the reason. And when I pose a challenge to the budget process, then I have to pose a solution for the same. So when you talk about subsidy and all that, the concept is that you've subsidized maize seedlings, right? Then, as I said earlier, I take this, where I come from, of course, with some issues with rains and constant.
Yes.
So I take this maize and go and plant in my area. So I should have done cassava instead of maize. So it is subsidized, but it is targeting who? So that's
good question.
Yes.
Before you even address who, I also want to throw some spanner into the works. You have mentioned that we lack the adequate research, to guide a majority of farmers what to grow in what climate and in what soil, because we also need to study soil. Then what is the role of research institutes that we have, one of them being like CARI? Are they failing in their mandate, or is there still lack of information trickling down? Before we get back to the issue of why they have failed, or rather these subsidy programs have failed.
So another reason why they might have failed, and of course they have not seen the light of life in terms of their objective. Why do you have an agriculture, call them extension officer, right? That we can access district-wise, sorry to mention the old framework, but we cannot have a research officer that you can access in that administrative function. So you're getting it where we are getting in terms of research before we plant. So the extension research officer should be able to know the number of farmers in their area, discuss with them and understand their soil, that soil science, and even water availability and all that. Then after he's done, he or she is done with that session, then the extension officer for agriculture comes in. Then now with their own framework. Now this is a seed, this is a soil that I got from the soil expert. Now this is a seedling that you buy to plant here. I want to give you an historical issue. Sometimes back, when the rain has started, then the headmasters and principals would announce to the pupils, when you go home, tell your parents, it is going to rain in 2 weeks. So they should go to these particular specified shops and buy these seedlings. They are the best for this area because these are short or long rains. You understand? The framework is making sense. It is communicating with the user. So we do our research, then distribute the seeds. We give even to shopkeepers who don't understand the whole concept, and they are sold all over. So it will not meet the objective. That's why we get
Victor,
it wrong.
do you think we are doing the research and not giving information about what is adequately out there for where? Are we missing the point in that?
I think in terms of research, we are doing the research, Regina, and we have quite a number of institutions in Kenya doing research on agriculture. Of course, the missing gap is the trickling of information from these research institutions to small-scale holder farmers. So basically, I think as Kenyans, we need to ask ourselves very tough questions when it comes to bridging the gap between the researchers and the end users. However, I want to say that indeed we have mechanisms that have worked before in the past, whereby local radios, like KBC has quite a number of local radios that are able to communicate to farmers, translating that research into palatable information that can be absorbed by farmers, and the farmers being able to use that information to go to their farms and plow at the right time, looking at what kind of information is coming from the researchers, and being able now, at the end of the day, researchers being able to come to these farmers and tell them, now, this is how you've consumed our information. We expect results when it comes to harvest time. Did that happen? So in terms of breaking down the information to farmers is what now we need really to focus on as Kenyans. And I'm happy that mobile penetration in Kenya is really, really high. So we could use the mobile applications to reach out even to these farmers. Programs that have run even in mainstream media, I've seen quite a number of mainstream media running some of these programs that have been able to have outreach to the farmers. And of course, coupled by now what Bwana Kingo is calling them, the field extension officers. These are the people who now, if a farmer needs to be interpreted for maybe certain research information, then this person is able to come to the farmer and interpret that information to the farmer, and the farmer is able to now apply the case on the ground.
On a good day, let's work on a good day. We have the information, we have the inputs, we know where to buy them. But now, here comes the fight, man versus machine, when it comes to agriculture. And I like what Mr. Kingo had said earlier. Village, we're still thinking backwards. What was left down by the colonizers is still largely what is used. The issue of mechanized agriculture, especially where the small farmer is concerned. Why haven't we gotten into that bandwagon yet? We're in 2021, for Pete's sake. Kingo.
So I just add on the concept where the 60 billion agriculture, we call it 100%. So 3% of that should be given to research and then automation of farming, all that if I'm not wrong, the last financial year was around 950 million for the nationwide in terms of automation of agriculture. Of course, it don't make sense, or should be that amount or close to that. So why are we still on the traditional setup? I want to sophisticate the discussion a bit and say, because of our status of our economy, our status of other nation, we will not manage to automate farming. But we can utilize the resources that we have, the knowledge that we have, the land that we have. Because anyway, the average size of land, the average size of tenable land in this country is still small.
Yes.
1 acre, 2 acres. So putting tractors running across, they'll demolish your houses. So it not be feasible. But I want to empower the farmer to make the decision on what they are able to do and use the technology, the smallest technology that they have. If, for example, you look into how this money can be channeled to these farmers, why is it possible for me to open a shop, then go into a bank and say I want a business loan? They're called micro, for example. I'll be able to get that loan. Or else, if I not get, I'll be able to have a conversation with that banking officer. Yes, I need, and they will come and visit. Then my friends wants to do farming. Why is this person who wants to do farming not able to access credit? Even when you go into banking hall, the availability of agricultural loans, they're not there.
Good question.
You're getting the concept.
Now, good. I get where you're going, and I also want to throw in somewhere there, in that school of thought, as we're thinking about that.
Yes.
Have we made agriculture bankable? Is agriculture, or rather what is farming, a business, or is it a by the way? Let me use a statement that was used very fondly in 2020 after we confirmed our first case of COVID-19.
Yes.
Watu wanarudi mashinani,
Exactly.
maisha ya town imekuwa ngumu. Tunaenda kulima. We have taken kulima just as
So by the way.
by the way. Like when you're old and tired and retired, that's when you go back to the farm.
And that, by the way, runs the economy.
Unfortunately so.
Yes.
Bringing the issue of the youth.
Yes.
How many are going into farming right now?
Exactly. So it is because the framework of farming, the government has not invested as much as possible. I want to complete for you the model of a farmer going to a bank,
yes,
and getting these loans. So a business person will have, you put 10 people here who have loans in a bank, seven of them out of 10 will have business loans, but maybe 1 or 2 will be agricultural loans. Why? And these 7 are also farming, because they realize they cannot get money to fund their farming, so they opted something else. So when you go into a commercial bank, then you're able to get a loan. The bank will tell you, for example, it is too risky to fund David to farm in their own area, because we know this rain is not you cannot depend on that rain. Now the government comes in the risk framework of this farmer who has come to the bank. The risk is, for example, 10%. Government takes 7%. The government takes 7%. The bank takes 3%. So the government should be able to de-risk the farmer, so that the farmer can comfortably walk into any bank and get a loan to go and do farming. You understand? When you get this particular loan, the government has set a framework, should have set a framework. For example, if I get 10,000 to go and do farming, who are the people who come to appraise my farm? The research officer, the agricultural extension officer, and someone else from that, whoever is concerned in that case from the government. So they are able to tell the bank, this person is okay, go and give him or her 10 million. You understand? We have allocated this commercial bank this amount of money. In case our people default, we will be able to pay this percent. The other percent you can recover from whatever security they will have given you. So the ease of lending to farmers is provided to the commercial bank. Now when I get my 10 million, we come back to the conversation of sophisticated farming. You understand? When I get my 10,000, now I'm able to understand, how do I use the technology that I have in me to do the particular farming? I go and get drip irrigation, I get a tank, I put here. So I'm able to use the resources that I have and the knowledge that I have to do farming and make it easy. So the government is on one side. The financial institutions is on the other side. The farmer is midway. That's why Victor mentioned a lot of conversation about farming, farm inputs, research. It is zeros into one single farm. How do you put all these things into one single farm and they are able to process end to end?
That would be utopia.
Yes.
But man, wacha niseme sisi ndio tuko. Sisi ndio tuko. Farming looks so far off, especially in the digital, among the digital people, the tech surveys.
Yes.
And we'd want to look and I want to rope you in, Victor, the issue of tech survey, or rather adoption of climate smart agriculture, and how it is changing, the ecosystem in as far as agriculture is concerned. From where we speak, who are these who are taking up smart agriculture? Yes, who are they?
Yeah, thanks, Regina. I think I'll start by saying first is that we are seeing a case whereby there's a lot of innovations coming into agriculture, and some of these innovations are meant to entice the youth so that they come into agricultural farming. And some of the technologies that are being promoted, as we have mentioned before, include technologies that will make farming friendly, but also make farming fun, as the youth say it. Basically, looking at how do we now ensure that as much as these people want to farm, how can they enjoy it, but at the same time looking at our food basket. So in terms of climate smart agriculture technologies, we are seeing a case whereby most farmers now, we are pushing farmers to adopt, as we mentioned, solar irrigation, but also looking at, if you're a poultry farmer and you are not even connected to the grid in Kenya, we now have solar incubators. So, and before, most people, even where I come from, we used to, to rear chicken, and rearing of chicken was not, it was only for subsistence use. We never saw the bigger picture of being able to now even rear chicken and supply, the eggs and the meat to the market. However, that narrative is changing, Regina, whereby we are calling for more youths to participate. As you mentioned before, Some of us think that farming, we can only do it once we retire from the Nairobi life and we go back to Ushago, as we call it, you know, our rural homes. So trying even to tell the youth and the people in Nairobi that you can even have your small kitchen garden at the back of your house, or using, you know, the gunny bags to grow your spinach, to grow your kales, so that increasingly we have, if you grow this and you're able even to sell to your neighbor, you are practicing some form of, you know, commercial agriculture.
Well, I think when it comes to commercial agriculture, you're going to be running into some headwinds when it comes to the ministry there. We know the issue of hawking, you know, with the policy out there. I cannot sell my milk to you, so let's chill on that, but we get that. Now, capitalizing on this available land and looking at the peri-urban, we have seen something coming up that is referred to as vertical agriculture. You have rightfully put it. How do we commercialize this? That I am growing tomatoes on my balcony, how then can I make an extra shilling? I don't know if we start with you or we start with the money man on the far end, Mr. Kingo. How do we commercialize, you know, vertical agriculture, especially looking at these times when, you know, purchase power among Kenyans is quite diminished?
Well, okay, thanks for that particular input. What I'll mention about commercializing vertical farming, of course, you will not be able to trigger the market as one person. So you need to come together. Then I had a discussion of something that we used to call aggregators. So what are aggregators? For example, if you're doing onion farming, the vertical farming, but put it in my village. Yes. So we are doing onion farming, and we want to bring them to Nairobi. So there is this institution that is set up that deals with onion farming, and it can be either private, but they have subscribed some regulations with the government. So they're able to take my onion, my friend's onion, someone's friend's onions, at a centralized storage place. Then we're able to get things like they're called in business delivery books. So I know I delivered 10 kgs of onion today, this particular place. We have a refrigeration. So they'll be collected on Friday. So within that particular week, I've been able to take around 10,000 worth of onion. Someone else has taken 5,000, 15,000. So we are now having some purchasing power. Yes, we now communicate. We are telling the market, we as farmers in this village, we can produce 10 tons of onions in 2 weeks. So you've been buying from us. When you aggregate and you bring to a market, it can be disorganized but disciplined. To even Githurai 45 as a collection center by the private sector and the government in subscription. So we're telling them, we as the village, you've been buying from us at 10 bob per kg, but we're giving you a lot. Can you now move to 11 bob per kg? So we have the say when we are in numbers. So the aggregation concept is not there. Why can't aggregation concept survive? Because of this middle people. Yes, they want to kill and take it. So the vertical farming will only be able to make economic sense when aggregation concept is put in place.
Aggregation there. Consolidating what you have, what you have, what Victor has, and we move as one block. Now, you've talked about the issue of the middleman, and I want to bring out now the issue of policy when it comes to agriculture, because it inherently provides a framework of the agriculture sector. I want to move away from simple farming, rather maize and such and such. Let's go to our export portfolio. Focus on tea, coffee. But now let's focus on tea. We have seen over the last 1 year a few changes when it comes to coffee. I mean to tea as well as coffee sometime 2 years back, but now we are focusing on tea. We have seen that push and pull between government and the marketing agencies. We had KTDA there, they had new elections, just trying to change and make sure that the farmer earns more. When it comes to policy then, are our policies driven to support the farmer? Or are they there to just benefit the agency, or rather big shots that run this particular agencies, so to speak? Look at what is happening with the export portfolio, tea. Mr. Kingo?
So what I will say about tea and coffee and other larger product, farm product that we have in this country, I'll mention that the concept of KTDA is a good concept. I don't know how old it is. So maybe the farmer has come to also learn. But maybe we can agree as John, David, and Kamau, we rush to France and have Johnson there, then we put our tea or coffee in a plane, then it is there. So that information must be brought into the concept of this aggregator. We call it KTDA, for example. Then the aggregator is now able to revise their model and put the concept of the farmer inside. Because what happens when we remove this middle aggregator, and the middle aggregator is not a broker, I call it on local language. This is someone who has put people together. But when every farmer now has information and they can know this price, my daughter is in France and he or she tells me when this coffee tea comes here, this is how they sell it. They have the financial, now they can read and understand. So it's about talking back to having the conversation with the farmers. Which way would we go? But don't lose the aggregation concept. The moment I'm able, 10 people will facing the market, 10, 5 in terms of groups.
We have a more bargaining power.
Yes. So, but when you are put together, we are heavy. Because once we are separated, we cannot now control the market. Everybody is taking their own conversation.
Victor, what do you have to say? Where the aggregator has for years been taking advantage of the farmer, especially the small-scale farmer. Do we need this aggregator? Kingo says we need him.
Yeah, I think my take would be policies should work for small-scale holder farmers. And we know those tea-growing regions in Kenya are increasingly being faced by the challenge of, they no longer have land. The issue of land is becoming a big challenge, especially if you look at the central part of Kenya, whereby now you have small-scale holder farming, especially if you look at tea. I remember back then when I was small, we used to grow tea at my rural home, and we had to pluck it simply because we did not have money in our pockets. So I think as a government, and what the government of Kenya is trying to do is that they're coming up with policies, and these policies are meant to, to line the pockets of the small-scale holder farmers. And when you're talking about, looking at the various models that exist right now when it comes to the tea value chain, is that increasingly we tell the farmers now you can play a part when it comes to dictating even the cost of this product. And how do they do that? Is that by coming together and being able to run some of these tea factories that, be part of a wider association that runs the tea factory, and therefore they are able to control, the sale and all that comes into the tea value chain. So in summary, what the government is doing is that they are trying to push policies that at the same time that we have more bonuses for our tea farmers in Kenya. And as we all know, most of the tea that is grown in Kenya is sold in the export market. Yeah. Those intermediaries that exist when it comes to the tea value chain, we need to get rid of them so that farmers on the ground have more say when it comes to the sale of the commodity in the international market.
Let's come back to maize, because we say maize is our staple food at this point. You touch ugali, you touch everybody. But now in this particular fiscal paper, the budget that is was given, agriculture was given 3 billion to subsidize farm inputs, 1.5 billion for flower and horticulture farmers to access international markets, and maize or corn seeds were exempted from VAT to make them, or to make these seeds available to farmers. Was that a wise move? And how will this impact on our value chain when it comes to maize in particular?
Yes, of course, it's a wise move because the cost of maize seeds has really grown over time. Because I'm a farmer and I know the cost of buying a 2 kg packet of quality seeds. So once the VAT is removed, of course they're accessible and people are able to buy and plant quality seed. So if they package quality seed at cheaper prices, of course is a plus to that concept. Because maize farming, you not only need it for export but even for consumption.
For consumption.
Yes.
Victor, what's your take in regard to that particular move?
Yeah, I think it is coming at a point when it's late, but coming at a point when the government initially had promised even to reduce the cost of a 2 kg packet to less than 100 bob in Kenya. So I welcome that move so that farmers get good quality seeds that they can plant. Of course, some of these seeds are treated. So basically what that means is that a farmer can grow the seed and be assured that what I'm growing is what probably in 8 to 10 months is what I'll harvest. Because we've seen cases whereby farmers in North Rift are actually complaining of fake seeds. So basically exemption of VAT means then that that cost translates to the farmer. It's an extended cost in terms of reduction of the prices of the seeds to the farmers. Of course, I also want to say that it is coming at a point when Kenya is relying heavily on imported, maize. From our neighbors. So ensuring that farmers are able to counter that is a very wise move, because as Kenya, we do not have control of what a farmer in Tanzania will sell to us. So basically, when we empower our farmer here, it means that we will be in control, and our farmer you will be able to say that this is the much of inputs I've used to grow this 90 kg bag of maize. Therefore, I'll demand more from the government, and they're able to increase the livelihoods of these farmers in Kenya.
You're talking about what we're growing, but now what we are getting out of it is, has Kenya come of age to fully adopt to GMOs? There's been a lot of conversation and debate, push and pull here. Have we come of age, Kingo?
Yes, of course we've come of age unknowingly, I say, because
unknowingly.
Yes, because the local
what
farmer.
Has got us there? What has got us there?
Okay, these seedlings we push them to farmers who really don't know what they plant and which type of seedlings. So by default they're able to plant, and once they get into cycle, and the way we get seeds in the villages as farmers, this is how it happens. When you plant maize, for example, this season, so next season you don't buy seed again. So you pick the best out of that maize crop. So you plant them the next season. So if it was an entry of GMO, then now it's running maybe the second of that season. Then something else happens. We exchange these seedlings in the local setup, because availability of seedlings from the government or maybe from the private investors is not well. The implementation is to the ground. So we're able to exchange these seedlings across farmers. So if it was one farmer who had a GMO at a start, so by the end of 2 years, they might be planted in like 10 other counties. Yes. So we've been there unknowingly.
Yes. Now, for those who know, adoption of GMO, how does it look on ground? Have our farmers fully embraced that, or are we still skeptic?
I think it's a big issue, and academics will come with their own school of thoughts. Local farmers will come with their own school of thoughts. I will say that GMOs is actually the use of the GMO seeds in Kenya is still a big issue. We need to have policies that, as a country, that govern the use of such kind of genetically modified seeds. But I would want to say that from the perspective of the changing in climate, is that what we had some few years back in terms of our seed bank is what we need to rely as Africa. Basically because some of the seeds that we do have in Africa are really resilient to the changing climate. Yes.
Hold it at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Now, we are on ground there with John Jacob Keria, who is covering an event there with Governor Alfred Mutua, who said that he would be riding on the commuter train from railways to pipeline. And we want to know from our reporter on ground, how has that particular ride been for the governor, and what does he have to say in regard to matters that have been continuing to make headlines when we talk about succession politics of 2022? Good morning, Keria.
Kenya imekuwa nchi ya watu saa zote kulipa kodi. Kodi imepanda sana. Mimi nikiwa rais wa Kenya nitarejesha kodi chini. Tuondoe kodi zingine, turejeshe kodi chini. We widen the base, collect from more people and lower the taxes. Ufanye kazi, ubakie na pesa nini kwa mfuko. Vijana hapa wako na shida, hata kijana mwingine pale ameniambia hizi oa. Sababu mfuko hakuna pesa. Si ndio? Anaongelesha mrembo hapa, anamwambia hai, mrembo anamwangalia juu chini, anasema ai. si ndio? Mimi nataka vijana wakuwe na pesa kwa mfuko waweze kuoa. Swali lingine, huyu jamaa bodaboda hapa.
Asante sana mheshimiwa. Swali langu ni sisi kama vijana wa juakari wa bodaboda, wengine tumeoa, tuko na watoto.
Channel One, your true sports partner.
Right here on KBC Channel 1, we're discussing matters of food security, looking at, funding gaps in as far as the agriculture sector is concerned. Two gentlemen with me in studio. On my far right is none other than David Kingo, who is a public policy analyst and partner at 14F Consulting Group. Next to him is Victor Gathogo, an agriculture and climate specialist at SNV Netherlands. Before we took that short break, we were talking about issues of, climate change and such. And I have a question for you, Victor Gathogo. We have talked about maize and why maize is an integral part of us. We term it as a staple food. But given the issue of output and the cost of input to actually grow this maize, is it high time that we diversified, our food basket to something else other than maize? There's a project to fortify ugali. I don't know where we are as far as government is concerned.
Yeah, thanks, Regina. I think I'll start by providing more context on the issues that is affecting most of these farmers who are growing maize in Transmara, Wasingishu County, basically the North Rift. We are seeing a case whereby the changing climate has really affected these farmers. Recent past, we had the fall armyworm that really affected most of these farmers, and we had farmers literally, picketing in the streets, calling on to the government to assist them when it comes to fighting this, disease or this particular pesticide. So we are looking at a case whereby, as we move on into the future, or as farmers try to innovate, to look at how they provide other alternative sources of food crops to Kenyans, we are looking at a case whereby alternatives need to be adopted by farmers, and we are seeing cases whereby now farmers are now moving towards, from planting crops that will take up to 10 months to mature to crops that will take up to 4 months. So we are looking at a case whereby potatoes being, as a source to provide starch, which is what we get from when we eat ugali. So looking at potato farming, but also telling farmers that indeed, as much as we try to give mwananchi the maize that they need to, the maize so that they get their ugali from that, is that they adopt farming technology, they adopt farming practices that will be resilient to some of these pesticides. So basically looking at, intercropping. Some farmers, this is something that actually we were being taught in 4K Club back then, when I was in school, intercropping as a mechanism, to safeguard yourself. When one crop fails, then you have this crop to rely on. Yeah. So basically those are the conversations that are happening with farmers, but also looking at how best farmers can, go back to the days when we had a lot of maize in the country. Yeah.
Now, moving away, or before we digress from matters, maize, mahindi is here to stay. Touch ugali, you've touched us. We are up on the road. We are up in arms. Mr. Kingo, we had a project that has soon is almost becoming a white elephant, if not pink for that matter. And this is the Galana Kulalu project. What was your take in regard to the budgetary allocation this financial year? It seems that it did not get anything. So what does it mean for the billions that was sunk into this particular project? Kingo.
Yes, I tend to think in terms of framework, the project is still good, the model is still good, and is still viable, because if one person can grow farmers maize, for example, in a certain place, why is it difficult for government to put resources and grow maize? So the framework is good, the model is still good, the model is still viable. Maybe operational issues that have faced the project, and that's why it's not able to pick up as expected the number. I've not seen any budget allocation for the same, unless it's going to be a subset of the agriculture budget that we've not been told. So, but basically the model is good, and it's a nice project. If focus is still given to it before we lose everything, then it will be feasible. Then there are many structures that it can be done. For example, with the National Youth Service structure, they can be put into push and see the output of the same. But it's really a good model that can be followed, and it zeroes in even into other farmers that are out here. Because, for example, you had a discussion about climate change. Climate change will bring something in terms of the amount of output that you have, for example, it's reduced. And remember, the inflation has come in as well. So the purchasing power of the 10,000 that you produce from that farm has been reduced because of inflation. So if projects like Galana Kulalu were able to come in, reduce the cost of maize flour, for example, in the shop. So you are 10K that was buying a number of maize flour for a year to feed your children will be able still to purchase the same number of maize flours over that particular duration, because the price have been subsidized. And what subsidizes that? The maize that we come from a major government project and the food production basket in the country. So when they are frustrated, of course, the cost of maize flour, for example, will still go high. So the purchasing power of your 10 acre keeps on reducing. Yes.
Very well put. Now, in this particular financial year, we have livestock farming allocated 6.6 billion shillings. That is a number we're talking about. But now we have also seen the government really work at reviving the Kenya Meat Commission. Kingo, let's start off from you before we finish off with Victor. What does this mean then for the livestock farming value chain?
Yes, of course, it's a good concept, and it's a more or less the concept of aggregator. So we are able to keep our bulls and take to Kenya Meat Commission. So it's a good concept. So once it comes back, as we've seen the president trying to push, that's exactly a good model. Then we'll realize sometimes when it's during drought period and these stands die and these animals are dying, they're able to be brought, the government buys and bring them to Kenya Meat Commission. They are sold, it's good meat stored outside. So it's a good model. Yes.
From your take, do you think it will provide the impetus to just grow even the leather industry as a byproduct of, the beef and such?
Yes, and I've seen some around 350 million, I'm not sure, that allocated to a leather leather in Kenania, the river somewhere.
Yes.
So it's the same model. So we call it a multiplier concept. You do Kenya Meat Commission. Where do you take the skin? So you have a leather industry on board. So it's a good concept, and it might even bring many other businesses around the whole value chain. Yes.
Now, looking at livestock farming away from matters of KMCs, and now the issue of even hybrid animals that are making way, especially dairy animals that are making way into our local market. From where you sit, then, is this a long-term trend? And what is actually influencing this?
Yeah, I think it is a long-term trend, and I'm happy to actually note that the government is now paying attention to livestock farming. Particularly, before I come to your question, looking at allocations of almost 200 million to livestock insurance. As we know, most of the livestock that we rely for beef, the goats, the sheep, and all manner of cattle that is kept in the north, they're really ravaged by drought. So being able to come up with mechanisms that will allow this farmer to to fall back when it comes to matters of drought, when their herds die due to drought or their lack of pasture for that matter. So basically looking at that is a good call, is a good thing by the government. Of course, going back to your question, looking at the dairy cattle that are coming in, we need to pursue other breeds that, of course, are high yielding in terms of milk. Because milk is something that most small-scale farmers rely on. Keeping 2 to 3 herds of cattle to to either use that milk to feed it to their children or use it at their homes or basically sell it to the market. And we are seeing a case whereby in Kenya, the milk sector is really growing. A lot of investments are coming into the milk sector. Therefore, we need to match that investment with production of milk. So it's a good thing that we are having a number of breeds coming into being given to Kenya. And the county governments are also actually doing a wonderful job. Some of the county governments we read in the papers, they're providing, they're coming with programs where they're giving household 1 or 2 herds of cattle for milk production is a good thing. And I think welcome that. And let's see, the future is looking good for milk farmers. But at the same time, what we call for the government is not forget farmers who keep livestock in the north because of the situation they are in. In terms of climate, in terms of lack of extension services.
Yes.
So basically coming up with disease-free zones that these people can sell their cattle, and the cattle can be sold to United Arab Emirates in form of milk, in form of beef and other products.
Now, let's go to disaster management. 70 years on, we have never experienced what we experienced last year with the invasion of the locust.
Yeah.
Whoa, let's start from the numbers and the figures that so far government has spent to eradicate or rather tame the spread of the locust menace.
Yes.
I think it has, towards the end of the last year, they had spent quite some large number, and it has affected the fiscal planning when it comes to the agriculture sector.
Yes.
Mr. Kingo, going forward, do you think that this is a subject or rather something that we are going to see government planning for?
Yes, of course, we need some, based on what happens, because we need some like contingent fund or some provision in the agriculture setup that is best, that can be able to get that for that. Then anyway, we have the Ministry of Devolution and Planning and Strategy that's able to deal, a department that's able to deal with that, because even if we're seeing drought, it's going to be also an issue, locust and drought. So maybe to increase the allocation that we do in the Ministry of Devolution to take those disasters and ensure that we bring everything to space after it has happened. So whatever we've seen on allocation of locust fight, of course, the objective, and the thing is to understand why are they coming and do a lot of background research about, so that we can be able to address the root cause. Because you might fight them here with a lot of print and everything, but they come again. So how long will we keep on doing that? So we need to have preventive actions, not corrective for that matter, so that we ensure we are able to sort it once and for all.
In the event that it ever happens again, because that was an occurrence that took us by storm. 70 years, we've never recorded something like that. Victor, so far we've had that Ministry of Agriculture coming and saying that our food basket is intact, that we should not worry, that we have more than enough reserve for food. Given that we have been dealing with the locust menace that has really, it has hit our highlands, that's where we grow most of our crops. From the ground, impact, was it too much, or have we recovered?
I think we are slowly recovering. Indeed, regions in the northern frontier districts are the regions that are mostly affected, as we all saw that these insects were eating pasture that is meant, competing actually with what is eaten by goats and sheep and the cattle, including the camels. So we are slowly recovering, but as Kingo rightly put it, coming up with solutions that are able to predict early enough, so that we have stopgap measures, prediction mechanism. And I was happy to see that the government really worked with IGAD when it comes to coming up with modeling or predictions of where these locusts will be at what time, so that working with other partners like the development partners, they were able to really move fast, spray some of these the larvae that the eggs and the larvae that the locusts were laying, and looking at how do we work well with the farmers on the ground. And development of tools, I think it was very critical that some of these tools played, the mobile handset that all of us had. We had tools that were developed by the development partners, and they're able to report very fast to government and to the county governments and tell them, this is where we've spotted the swarm, and please have a look at how we can spray this swarm. So we've taken our lessons as a country. However, in the future, I don't know if it will happen soon, but we must come up with prediction models that will always analyze and tell us when this is going to happen, so that we mitigate it.
Be a
fast.
step ahead, preventive and not corrective when it comes to disasters. One such as what we have experienced is a locust menace. Now we have our production, we have our harvest is there. How do we address post-harvest losses? Because we are losing a lot of our product out there. We start off with Victor, then...
Okay. Thanks, Regina. Post-harvest losses has been a big issue, especially in Kenya for perishable products. And we've seen some of the farmers crying on live TV that they have harvested so much, but so much of the products that they have is rotting at their farms. So addressing post-harvest losses calls for innovating of ways to address this. And as I'd mentioned initially in my opening statements, is that technologies are now coming that are able to address post-harvest losses. Such technologies are run on solar. Therefore, whenever a farmer is in far-flung areas and there's no electrical power, they're able to rely on some of these companies that are providing. I'll use an example in, for example, in Embu, where I saw one. We call them solar for productive use. Basically, these are technologies that use solar, and farmers are able to store their product. So, for example, you grow your tomatoes. Once you harvest your tomatoes, they cannot even do more than a month when you have them in. So, basically, they are cold storage solutions that are able to address post-harvest. It's a big thing, with almost 30% of what farmers are harvesting in their farms going to waste. So, looking at critical policies, and I'm happy to say so at this moment, we've been working with county governments to address some of the issues, and addressing post-harvest losses, is as simple as making sure that farmers, the feeder roads that feeder roads coming from the farms are done. Can be all surface, all weather surface roads. Just looking at how we make them passable so that farmers can access the terminal markets. Bwana Kingo came up with the issues of aggregators. Aggregators are also coming up in Kenya, and I'm happy to mention that some of these private sector are coming up, and they have identified that post-harvest loss is a big issue. Therefore, they are calling on to farmers: if you've harvested, please sell your product to us. We aggregate, and we are able to sell it to the market.
Mr. Kingo, something to add on that point?
Yes, I just mentioned that post-harvest losses, they come in terms of, we can talk about the time it can take maybe to reach your destination in terms of to sell your product. The number two is on the value addition chain issues. So maybe, for example, if if I can cool my product and maybe transport the following day, that would be a good concept. Then I just give you a thought on Kenya Meat Commission. If, for example, meat can be slaughtered, for example, in Garissa, then we have a coolant system there, a coolant plant that is owned by Kenya Meat Commission and the locals. They have come together and private public partnership program. So they're able to store their meat there once, process and export direct to the market. So that way, Kenya Meat Commission is able to access market that are even far off from its center. So the concept of aggregators still reduces those losses, because they are concerned in terms of, these are our nature of product that we're buying from the farmers. How do they reach to us without these losses? But we look at, if the GDP by agriculture is 34%, that means it should be almost 50%. The 14% is lost by post-harvest losses and even loss in the farm. So the government coming to those concepts can really cushion these particular losses, and because it has a plus to the economy. Yes.
Now, we have now, what is holding back the agriculture sector from, really doing value addition? Because that is where the money lies. We know where the money lies, but we have been struggling. I know you mentioned the issue of cost of production, but other than that, then what can we do to ensure that we rake in these monies that are coming in? Because look at our tea, for example. When it comes back here, we can't even afford to get it off the shelf. But yet we are selling it off for peanuts, and some of it even gets diluted or rather mixed up with another brand out there and resold to us. Value addition in the agriculture sector.
I think value addition in the agriculture sector, I think of it in this way, because a heavy investment that the government needs to do. Then I give you a model that we used to call it, we could call quick win projects. Where, for example, the government said, we'll put centers of excellence in terms of school in each constituency. Look at that particular framework. So the quality of education was enhanced by having one center of excellence in each particular district or constituency for that case. So when it comes to agriculture, for us to have value of agriculture, the thought could be, why don't we have food processing plants, cooling systems, one center of excellency, value chain addition plant in each constituency or each district based on accessibility of the farmers there, the nature of output that they have, the nature of product that they have. Then these particular centers, they are able now to communicate to the aggregators. I want to give you a view. For the community to construct a school, for example, the government has said CDA has allocated this money can construct this, and parents can come in and bring this. They carry sand on back and whatever stones that they have in the village, bring together and build a class as the government is supporting. Private-public partnership. If the farmers are told that we want to build a coolant here, we have the coolant, it is there, the silos are here. The only thing that we are lacking is the foundation, the base, that this thing is going to sit. I'm sure if community is put together and told, this thing is 100,000, but you don't even need the money. Volunteer farmers, bring sand, bring whatever we're going to construct. That concept is going to solve the issue of value addition once and for all. Public and private partnership, where the village, and remember you started initially, the village development concept. In Ghana they are called VIPs. So if you have the VIP concept of Ghana in Kenya and in the rest of Africa, then this value addition and post-harvest losses, they are going to be sorted once and for all. Because why do we fight, for example, why is it believed that we can have an Harambee to renovate a classroom, for example, even build a church for that matter, or a mosque, or whatever for that matter, but we cannot have an Harambee, or people come together to contribute money to buy a silo where we can put our maize and wait, or onions, give them time to dry it before we sell. That knowledge, that concept, need to be broken down by the government and told it is not this expensive to have this value addition concept. It can be broken down this way and it can be possible. Yes.
I see Victor nodding while you're speaking. He's really into what you're saying. Something to add on in regard to that? Because this conversation around value addition and bringing more money to the farmer is long overdue.
I think I agree with what the panelist has mentioned. And we are seeing a case whereby now farmers are increasingly being called to come together. If you're honey, if you are having bee, you're keeping bees somewhere in Kitui, why is it that we cannot come together and contribute? And we have cooperative models that are really picking up in Kenya. And for example, even in Makueni, we have where we have farmers who have been supported by the county government to come up with the Makueni mango processing plant. So basically, looking at what are the farmers producing? What do we have, in mass? That critical mass that we can come together and looking at how do we add value to the products. Of course, adding value to some of these agricultural products means that we're extending the shelf life of these products. We're able to fetch more from the market. You can imagine today if you're buying, raw honey and you sell it a kilo at around 700 shillings, and I come tomorrow, process the honey, refine the honey further and sell to you 1 kilo at 1,000 shillings, then what that translates to is more money to the farmer's pocket, and therefore more money earned in the market. Of course, basically looking at other product agricultural value chains, looking at, for example, the perishable product is something that we actually train farmers to come together so that they can add value to the products that they produce. For example, the French beans, rather than you picking your French beans and selling them to the market as the seeds, the seed and the pod, you'd rather blanch them. Blanching basically meaning you heat them up, put them in a bottle, and you seal it and sell it to the Kenyan market or to the international market. And what that, as I mentioned earlier, it means that farmers will be able to fetch more prices from the market, at the same time improve their livelihoods. Yes.
Now, as you work towards a close, the issue of access to funding is acute to a challenge as much as access to markets. From where you sit as a public policy analyst, you understand the dynamics of why we give money where. So from a farmer who is watching at home and they're thinking, how do I benefit from these monies that are being given by the government? I know it's 220 against 290 constituencies, but I want to be that one who benefits from that. How would you advise them to go about it?
What happens with government in terms of expenditure and funding budgets and how the money is intended to benefit an individual? Government does incentives. They create incentives and an environment for people to do business. So it might not be a direct effect where I would get 10,000 to go and do this. So, but the government will create incentives. So you'll realize that when you want to start, for example, it's the rain season and you want to farm. So make sure you walk into registered these farm product and seedlings distributors and have the discussion which is the best seed for my farm and this particular area. So you're able to get quality seed and that is subsidized. That's a way you can benefit. But the direct effect might not be there. Because the government only create incentives for people to have an ease of doing business, or ease of farming for that matter.
In terms of risk assessment, before we get to the issue of how we can access funding from the private sector, in terms of risk, would you advise a smallholder farmer to insure their farm?
The concept of insuring farms is quite broad. So I just mentioned
the harvest. I'm talking about the harvest, and maybe if it's a farmer, because there was a time when government came up, when it comes to livestock farming, they came up with a buffer against the issue of drought. But it was seasonal when we were dealing with La Nina. We've not had it come up again. So that was a season. But now we're talking about making farming a business. We insure our cell phones and everything else. Can we insure?
Yes, definitely we can. If the insurance companies, the brokers and the writers, for that matter, have a valuation concept that is very rational, that really meets the farmer and understands at what point can we have output here, at what point can we not have output here, then spread their risk and maybe try to have a pool of farmers that the subscription of this insurance product is what will ensure every farmer comes into the space, but it's a very objective setup. It's a very objective framework. So it would be advisable for people to take insurance on the same. But then, I'll just give you a challenge. I have people who do this milk and cattle hybrid farming. So when you insure your own bull, for example, and you don't get tick to spray for ticks, insecticides and such, you don't feed them correctly. So by the time they get to die, and it comes to evaluation, what meant this bull to lose life. So the reasons cannot be justified why you need to be paid. So there is a lot of framework in between. But maybe the insurance sector, the product owners and the farmers coming together and a lot of research, it's a good product. Yes.
How do I access this particular funding from the private sector if I am a smallholder farmer who really needs, because we all know farming is capital intensive?
Exactly. Yeah. Private sector is coming with solutions, finance solutions or finance products that private sector being targeted. Farmers are being targeted for. We have micro MFIs, or what we call micro and finance institutions, that are coming with products that are targeting farmers. Just to tell you, like banks like Faulu Kenya have been working with women farmers, to advance to them credit, and therefore after they've engaged with the farming practices, they're able to pay back. And the credit does not only cover on farming, but also include inputs. So it could be seeds, going into farming. It could be fertilizer. It could be even technologies that they are using to farm. So private sector plays an important role when it comes to accessing the finance gap that we do have in Kenya, including other private sector companies that are in the agricultural value chain. For example, the likes of companies that provide mechanized equipment for farming. So I'll want to give examples of those companies that sell the tractors. They have arrangements with the local banks that if you want a tractor, you can deposit maybe 5% and 95% being financed by by the bank. But looking at that in terms of the agricultural inputs, there's the other angle of now financing, coming up with partnerships with county governments. And we've seen just recently, like for example, like Kipia County, where they were given a AA credit of, in terms of attracting finance from other institutions. And as we all know, some of these counties are really our bread baskets. So we are looking at a case whereby now private sector can partner. Already the mechanisms have already been set for them to partner with private sector, with county governments or national governments. We've also seen a case whereby now, the likes of, I might not want to call them private sector, but multilateral, development banks coming into Kenya to finance agriculture. Like, for example, the African Development Bank that has invested a lot of money in our agricultural sector. And, when we talk about agriculture, it may not per se mean investment into crop farming or livestock farming, but also support infrastructure that looks into agriculture. So basically, the market is conducive in Kenya, and we've seen a lot of players having that, interest and the willingness to work with the national government and the county governments.
Mr. Kingo, would the launch of an agricultural bond be far-fetched?
In fact, I was thinking about that. And,
so we did telepathy.
Yes.
So tell us.
Yes.
Is it too far-fetched?
No, it's a very good concept because that's what called de-risking farmers. Because if the money is placed through commercial banks, that we say, the commercial banks are able to share the risk. The government through the bond takes like 50% of the risk, 50% of the risk is owned by the commercial banks, then people are able to borrow. That concept is very okay, it's very material. And that's why we said the conversation of trying to create incentives, how do we have tractors running around the villages farming for this and this. Why don't you give these farmers money? Because my farm is small. I don't want tractor. I just want a few labor here and there, then get some a tank, drip irrigation, and I'm able to move. Why don't you give me 20,000 as a person? So where do I get this 20,000? So I go to a commercial bank, and that particular agriculture product is available. Then the bank and the Ministry of Agriculture, for example, and the institution, if it is Agriculture Finance Corporation, that are mandated to evaluate this particular farmer. Now they're able to see who is the viable farmer and who is not the viable farmer. Who can we give money, who can we not give, based on analysis and evaluation of these particular people. So that way money is going to be objectively channeled. That's why the concept of, the thought is, how can I get some money in my pocket from the government? Then it is not possible. But now the plan B of a bond, through commercial bank to agriculture product, you are able to put money into your pocket. However, you pay back at a reasonable interest rate because the risk is shared. So you're able to move. All the concept of insurance are consolidated there. The loan is also insured. Your farm is also insured. But it is at a very cheaper cost. Yes, that's the future of agriculture farming and enhancing agriculture.
That's where we want to go.
Exactly.
Now, as we have said this over and over again, and it is quite repetitive, but when we get on ground, does Kenya pride itself as an agriculture-driven economy? Let's start off with you, Victor. Is it kwa ground? I'm a bit different.
Yeah, I think Kenya, for the fact that agriculture contributes highly to our GDP, we pride ourselves as being an agricultural nation. However, we have to be live to the fact that our neighbors are also competing with us, and they are, as highlighted by my fellow panelists, is that there are other models that are coming up that we need to embrace them as farmers. Basically looking at how do we transition our agricultural practices to what now you mentioned vertical farming. We've seen countries in the first world farming even in abandoned buildings simply because they don't even have the land. While Kenya, here back home, we have huge tracts of land that we can, with adoption of modern technologies, that we can transform them to agricultural land. And we mentioned about the Galana Kulalu project, whereby basically it was an arid land. Now we are looking at how do we irrigate this land and coming up with solutions that will ensure that we have enough for the country. I think also we pride ourselves as small-scale farmers, and as we all know, most of regions in Kenya now, we have land fragmentations, and land fragmentations are led to the shrinking of the available land that we can farm, the acreage that we can farm. So we have to adopt to smart technologies, drip irrigation. We no longer, I see nowadays even farmers can no longer rely on the weather patterns here in Kenya to predict when they want to grow, when they'll harvest. So we need also to come up with solutions or technologies that will increasingly inform our farmers, so that at the end of the day, we can say that we have a climate smart agriculture in Kenya, but at the same time looking at global ambitions when it comes to emissions. For example, we do not want to use tractors that are using diesel, and we emit so much. So what are the alternatives that can be provided to small scale farmers? What are the alternatives can large scale farmers can adopt? And how do we move the masses towards accepting what we grow, rather than, there's that notion when you see an apple that is grown in South Africa, you want to go for that apple because it looks really nice, it tastes good, but we have to ask ourselves, how do we capacity build our farmers such that they also produce high quality products? It could be organic products that will have less impact to our health and less impacts to the environment, but at the same time they're able to fetch premium prices for their products.
Now, Mr. Kingo, does the policy, or rather what we find as our Kenyan policy, indeed support this line that we are an agriculture-driven economy? I know what the GDP talks about, but does the policy commensurate what we expect from this sector?
I think the question is, does the policy pay back agriculture for placing the money on the table?
Does it?
So you bring the money on the table, but you're not involved in the discussion. So the concept is that the way an economy develops, there are different parameters. And how do we find ourselves where we are now? So the first concept is production. The age of production. If it is agriculture, the government is able to invest heavily in agriculture. It is for sophisticated, and production is on high level, and output is wow. So that particular stage, we close out on agriculture. After that, we move, for example, to infrastructural development. Even though the agriculture comes in the concept of infrastructural development, but it's not as heavy as when the agriculture investment itself and other production sectors of the economy. Then we move to have infrastructure. Then after that, we move to the sophisticated economies where people consume flowers, entertainment, and such. So what has happened with most African nations or developing economies? We both found ourselves in the first phase and the second phase. We want to grow agriculture, we want to grow infrastructure. However, infrastructure, of course, will be more expensive than agriculture to invest. So that's where we found ourselves with that confusion. So we're proud, but the setup of the agriculture, the age of economy, it's not able to give us those privileges to invest heavily in agriculture. So it will derail back for some time, but it will catch up with the model of the economy. Yes.
Well, we have been talking to our able panelist here, a public policy analyst and partner at 14F Consulting Group. That is a gentleman on my far right. That is David Kingo, accompanied by Victor Gathogo, an agriculture and climate specialist at SNV Netherlands. What we are hearing is that indeed Kenya prides itself as an agricultural-driven economy, given what the sector contributes to GDP. However, when it comes to funding, or rather budgetary allocation, that is currently at 60 billion shillings for the financial year 2021-2022, that's just roughly about 3%. And yet we expect this particular sector to give us over 30% when it comes to GDP. Stakeholders say it's a high time that government looks, or rather relooked into its policy framework, so that this particular sector that keeps us moving can equally earn as much as it's giving out. It's a pro quo here, give and take. And we say matters of food security and nutrition, a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. I've been your host, Regina Manyara, paving way, or rather giving way to my colleague Nancy Okware to come in with the Kiswahili version and the Tam Rini to just bring you up to speed on those stories that we have been covering for you as the news desk. So do keep it right here. Keep watching KBC Channel 1.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
It's about the creative and artistic industry, especially in Kenya.
The systems and the structure, they're porous. They're not defined for talents. Because when you come, you solely depend on your talent.
That culture of having a talent manager in Kenya, I think it's just a new thing and it hasn't been embraced yet.
So we borrowed these elements that worked from this other production and tried to compile them together to form an industry?
I think it's time we all embrace. The audience is too big. We all have our niche.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Wiki hii kwenye Mkulima tutafuga ng'ombe wa maziwa.
Mimi nawaambia wakulima jamini, tuache kusema mashamba ni madogo. Maana hii mahali ng'ombe wamekalia, kama ingekuwa tu project ya ng'ombe, ningejenga kanyumba kangu kakuishi kando yake tu. So kwa hiyo a quarter of land, utaweka ng'ombe wako, utaweka mbuzi wako, utaweka biogas na mahitaji ambayo uko nayo yote ataweza kusuluhishwa na hiyo maziwa.
Kisha tukuze pilipili aina ya Demon F1. Basi ungana nasi Jumapili saa 9:30 hapa KBC Channel 1.
Next on.
Ndo unaambie kama mimi ndo nyumba kubwa, huyo mwingine nyumba ndogo, ama nyumba ndogo na mimi nyumba kubwa.
Wangu jamani, mimi sina nyumba ndogo. Wala banda la uani sina. Wajibikaji. Wajibikaji kitu gani? Kwa hivyo ni mbebe mgongoni.
Tosha, siko mjadalani hapa. Talaka unatoa utoi?
Talaka stoi?
Nakuuliza tena, talaka unatoa utoi?
Hola. It's good to be back. The WRC has...
Channel 1, your true sports partner.
And on KBC Channel 1.
I have already apologized. How many times do you want me to say that I am sorry? Is 5 times not enough? And by the way, what is he even doing here?
These are your students? How can you allow him to talk to you like that? Who are you doing it for? Teacher, what is happening here?
I can already see the beginning of the end.
Teacher, just imagine you're a robber. How do you do it?
I am not a robber, neither do I plan to imagine being one.
Take back your notes. Huh? You can stay with your students and your sick school.
Wait, can't we talk about this?
Teacher, you know the lesson ended 5 minutes ago. Excuse me.
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
From now on, you have nothing to do with him.
What are you talking about? I'm his father.
Hey,
what are you doing?
What are you doing? You're gonna hurt him.
Tomorrow, I'm taking him back to San Francisco. You won't ever see him again.
What's come over you? What are you talking about?
Darshan, is this what you're leaving for me?
Darshan and Aiching, man and wife. I hope you have a happy life together, grow old, and have beautiful children.
Kumchukulia kwa mfano ndani ya matatu.
Yaani mtu mzima na miaka zake hizo miaka zote. Mtu ajui kujua kuandika noti. Noti tu peke yake. Kusoma kweli itasaidia.
Nini nakusumbua na nini?
Nauliza. Ni bwana.
There. Insult me, okay?
Mama yangu.
Don't you dare.
Haya, kwani nimepita? Nini wewe? Yaani wataka kumpiga. Huwezi mpika mpike nini?
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
God will make a way where it seems to be no way. Everywhere you go and you follow, I wanna sing for your glory.
We have been friends together from the first day we met in class.
I'm going to teach you how to make a fruit salad.
You know me. You like me.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Do you know where we are?
No, sir.
This is Earth. The temperatures on this planet fluctuate dangerously. danger is very real.
Next on.
Tumemsua watu watatu. Asidhani kazi stem atatoboa.
Guy. Wa.
That's all you can say.
Jazz anajua.
Jazz will be jazzed about it. See what I did there?
Let her through. Unajua masida yetu ilianza ili wakati nyeumo mwanamke alikujaga kwa maisha yetu. Mambo yetu sasa ikaanza kwenda kukurukakara. Mnaweza tuhitaji?
Sana.
Tiffany, I need to reach Chris.
What will happen to Glenn and Eric?
Well, that's my business.
Good, as Chris is mine.
Nancy, you know you're the mother of chaos. We are here because of you.
No, we are here because of your identity crisis.
Si dwe. Mimi Nancy haujai nikulisa wala kukulisa watoto wangu wala kuwasomesha.
Are you sure?
Naam, hujambo mtazamaji popote pale ulipo, natumai ya kwamba kufikia sasa siku yako inakuendea vyema. Karibu sana kwenye tamrini ya Channel 1. Bila shaka mtazamaji, tunazidi tu kufuatilia taarifa kutoka katika maeneo mbalimbali humu nchini, na bila shaka leo hii kwenye studio kumbuke ya kwamba wiki inapokaribia kukamilika kumekuwa na mengi ambayo yamejiri katika ulingo wa kisiasa, na hususan lile tangazo lililotolewa siku ya Jumatatu naye mwenyekiti wa tume ya IEBC Wafula Chebukati, ambalo lilikuwa linahitaji ya kwamba wale ambao wanapanga kuwania kiti chochote cha aidha mwakilishi wadi hadi katika kile kiti cha urais, basi itakuwa ni sharti wawe na shahada. Ni mjadala ambao tutakuwa tunazidi kuandaa na vile vile mtazamaji kuangazia hali ya kisiasa humu nchini, hasa katika siasa za kimaeneo. Kumbuka ya kwamba sasa hivi kumekuwa kukionekana na ile wanasiasa ambao wanajileta pamoja na kujaribu kuungana kabla ule uchaguzi mkuu wa 2022. Na hivyo basi kwenye studio nitakuwa nazungumza naye Sakwa Bunyasi ambaye ni mbunge wa Nambale. Tutakuwa tunaangazia hayo yote kwa kina hapa kwenye tamrini ya Channel 1. Karibu sana. Mie naitwa Nancy Okware, naye mfasiri wa upande wa ishara ni Byron Abuli. Kwenye mitandao ya kijamii kama kawaida utatupata kwenye Twitter @KBC Channel 1, @Nancy Okware, na vile vile pale kwenye Facebook @KBC Channel 1 News. Na basi mtazamaji, moja kwa moja tuingie tu kwenye mjadala wa siku. Karibu sana mheshimiwa kwenye studio zetu leo hii, na bila shaka tunapoanza pengine tuzungumze tu kuhusiana na lile tangazo ambalo wengi wamekuwa wakizungumza kuhusiana nalo tangu siku ya Jumatatu baada ya mwenyekiti wa tume ya IEBC Wafula Chebukati kutangaza ya kwamba itakuwa ni hitaji kwamba kiongozi yote anayetaka kuwania kiti chochote awe na shahada. Kauli yako ni ipi kuhusiana na tangazo lile?
Asante sana Mr. Kware. Kwanza kabisa ile tamko la mwenyekiti wa IEBC haikuwa mara ya kwanza. Hiyo sheria ilipitishwa kwa parliament ya 11th parliament, lakini wakasikizana kwamba kufuatana na upingamizi wakasikizana kwamba haitatumika kwa elections ya 2017, lakini ilikuwa kwamba itumike kuanzia election ya 2022. Kwa hivyo nadhani Chebukati alikuwa tu akitukumbusha kwamba kwa wale ambao hawajui hii ndio sheria. No. Sheria ambayo imepitishwa juzi. Hiyo sheria inajenga na inabomoa tuseme. Inajenga kwa sababu hali ya debate, hali ya mjadala wa bunge, ile bunge gatuzi ama National Assembly ama Senate, yote inataka watu ambao wanaelewa ni nini wanajadili. Kielewa kiundana ama kuisoma na kuelewa kama ni hesabu ya bajeti na nini, wawe na uwezo wa kujua hizi numbers manake ni nini, kwa sababu hii pesa ambayo tunaweka ama kutoa ama kodi ina maana kwa wananchi, ina maana kwa maisha yetu, ina maana kwa utamaduni na vitu vingi sana. Lazima wana uwezo wa kuvielewa kiundani. hapo ndio inajenga, lakini inabomoa kwa sababu kuna sehemu nyingi ambazo labda hawana watu wa kutosha. Wana watu wengi ambao wanashinda viti ambavyo vinataka uwe na shahada, lakini labda hatakuwa rahisi kupata kwamba kila mtu ambaye anaomba hicho kiti awe na shahada. Na hiyo nasema bila kujua hesabu ya wasomi kwenye counties tofauti zetu Kenya nzima, lakini kwa jumla hiyo ndio direction natakana twende. Hiyo ndio upande, hayo ndio mambo natakana tuangazie. Tuseme ukitaka kwenda kwenye siasa, usiende tu kwenda kwenye siasa kujaza nafasi na vitu vingine, uwe na uwezo wa kuparticipate, kuwa mojawapo wale ambao watatoa maoni. Ukiwa unasimamia watu wako, lazima uwe na uwezo wa kuelewa ni nini na kuambia bunge na wenzako kwamba kwetu matatizo yetu ni hii na kujua hesabu, sio hesabu ya shule, lakini iwe kwamba unaelewa uzito wa kila neno ambalo unatamka. Na mara nyingi kuna watu ambao hawana shahada lakini wana huo uwezo, kwa sababu tangu waache shule labda wameendelea kusomea vitu tofauti na kuhusika kwenye vitu ambavyo vimejenga their competence, wamepatia uzoefu wa kutosha kujadili hata kama hawana shahada, lakini si wengi. Kwa hivyo, kwa sababu hii ilikuwa sheria ambayo imekaa sasa karibu miaka 10, nadhani ni muda ambayo wananchi wa Kenya wakubali tuendelee kwamba mtu awe na shahada, na wale ambao hataweza kuingia 2022 kwa sababu hawatapata nafasi ya kutosha, labda walikuwa wamesahau, wajitayarishe 2027 wawe nazo. Na nadhani tukifanya hivyo itakuwa step moja ambayo itasaidia kujenga umaarufu wa siasa yetu.
Na pengine kumekuwa na pingamizi ambayo imekuwa ikishuhudiwa. Kwa mfano, kuna wale ambao wanasema unaposikiza wengine ni kana kwamba ni tangazo ambalo wamelisikia kwa mara ya kwanza siku ya Jumatatu, ilhali lilipitishwa mwaka 2017. Hivyo basi kumaanisha kulikuwa pengine na ule muda wa kutosha kwa yule ambaye pengine angependa awanie ama kwenda apate ile shahada. Unapoangalia ule mjadala unaoendelea nchini kwa sasa hivi, unasoma nini miongoni mwa wananchi, pengine wale ambao wangependa kuwania ilhali kwa sasa hivi wamepatwa hawakuwa wamejiandaa?
Wajua, watu wengi waliangazia tu mambo ya BBI na yale ambayo ilikuwa ndani ya BBI. Walidhani kwamba yote ambayo inatakikana sasa kwenye BBI, bila kujua kwamba BBI ilikuwa na lengo la kubadilisha tu vipengee fulani na vingine ambavyo haikuguza havikubadilika. La kwanza. La pili, kuna masharti mengine kama hii ya kuwa na shahada ambayo haikuwa kwenye katiba, lakini iko kwenye ile sheria ya uchaguzi. Na BBI haikuguza hayo mambo kwenye sheria ya uchaguzi. Kwa hivyo wale ambao walidhani kwamba sasa yote ambao wanataka wajue waelewe iko kwenye BBI, walikosea, walipoteza nafasi nzuri ya kujua kwamba kuna masharti mengine ambayo ishapitishwa ambayo ni sheria ambayo inaweza kutumika. Na hiyo inatuonyesha wazi kwamba lazima uwe na uwezo fulani kuelewa huu mjadala wa kisheria Kenya yetu hii. Kwa mfano, kujua kwamba BBI ilikuwa na lengo la kubadilisha tu vipengee fulani na katiba, vipengee ambavyo vikubadilisha kwenye katiba viliendelea na sheria zingine ziko. Kwa hivyo haikuwa mara ya kwanza, lakini labda ingalikuwa vizuri kwa civic education kama walianza mapema kuambia watu mkumbuke kwamba sio tu mambo ya BBI ambayo tunabadilisha, nyingine hazibadiliki, na kuna sheria zingine pia lazima mzijue. Presidential elections, general elections, elections act hiyo, na the rest of na katiba ambayo haikubadilishwa, upande wa katiba ambao haukubadilishwa. Kwa hivyo ndio lazima kulikuwa na watu wengi ambao walishutuliwa kwa sababu hawakujua kwamba ipo, na walikuwa kisema, je, haya mabadiliko ipo ndani ya BBI ama hapana? Nimeulizwa na MCAs wengi, iko ndani ya BBI? Nasema haiko kwenye BBI, na wakadhani kwamba kama haipo kwenye BBI ndio kusema haipo, sasa imetolewa. Lakini wasahau kwamba kuna sheria zingine, na pia ni kuonyesha kwamba hawakusoma BBI. Those are the important thing. Waangaliona kwamba wale ambao wanaulizwa haiko kwenye BBI, na je, imebadilisha kwenye Elections Act ama hapana?
Na pengine kauli yako inatuleta katika swali la je, humu nchini kuna pengo katika kutoa elimu kwa umma? Manake unapoangalia wiki hii, siku ya Jumatatu, tume ya IEBC ilianzisha ile wiki ya kuelimisha umma, lakini ingawa wanaelimisha umma kwa sasa hivi, ni kumaanisha kwamba wale ambao wamefahamu siku ya Jumatatu kuhusiana na ili tangazo la kwamba watahitajika kuwa na shahada, ni kumaanisha kwamba wamechelewa. Na vile vile kuna ili tangazo lingine ambalo IEBC ilitoa siku ya Jumatatu ya kwamba kufikia Oktoba ama kutoka Oktoba mwaka 2018 wapiga kura zaidi ya 1149 wamesajiliwa. Kuna wengine vile vile hawakufahamu ya kwamba shughuli yenyewe ya kusajili wapiga kura imekuwa ikiendelea. Kuna pengo katika swala la kuelimisha umma humu nchini.
Kuna pengo katika swala la kuelimisha wananchi na kuna pengo kwenye swala la kuelewa pia. Mara nyingi elimu ya kujulisha wananchi sheria ni nini ama lengo letu ni lipi, wanadhani kwamba ukishamaliza kulizungumzia sasa mambo yameisha. Tunategemea sana mambo ya social media ya mitandao siku hizi, lakini labda lingalikuwa neno ambalo liko kila pahali, kama ilani tuseme, kila ofisi, kwa chief, kila mahali, watu wakumbuke kwamba unaweza ukajisajili kwa IEBC muda wowote. Ilikuwa continuous, ilikuwa ikiendelea. Lakini hata mimi nimejaribu, kwa mfano kwangu, kusaidiana na watu waenda wakasajili, lakini wanasema tutangojea wakifungua kusajili. Tunasema inaendelea. Anasema pana, kabla ya kura watatufungulia, ndio huo wakati ambao tutaenda tujisajili. Kuna pengo kubwa sana.
Naam. Hilo pengo tunatumia ya kwamba ni jambo ambalo litakuwa linaangaziwa, manake tume ya IEBC sasa hivi imeanza ile wiki, na tunatumia kwamba pengine wananchi zaidi watajifunza mengi kuhusiana na yale ambayo yanastahili kutekelezwa humu nchini. Na pengine mwisho kabisa, tukizungumza kuhusiana na hili swala la IEBC na tangazo lililotoa, tuzungumze kuhusiana na halmashauri ambazo zitahusika katika kuhakikisha vile vyeti ambavyo wale viongozi wanawasilisha ni sawa, na vile vile tofauti ipi ambayo pengine tutarajia ikiwa tutapata viongozi ambao wana kile kisomo, wana ile shahada, ikilinganishwa na kiongozi asiye na shahada au aliye na shahada. Tutapata tofauti yote, manake kuna masuala ya maadili. Wengine wanasema ya kwamba kiongozi bora ni maadili na utendakazi.
Nakubalia. Kwanza nilivyosema mwanzoni ni kwamba sio kila mtu ambaye hana shahada, ambaye hana uwezo wa kuparticipate vizuri kwenye mijadala ya bunge gatuzi ama bunge la kitaifa. Mimi nina wenzangu wengi kwenye bunge ambao hawakupitia karibu na university, lakini ambao tangu wamalize shule zao za upili, kwa mfano, wamefanya vitu vingi maishani ambavyo effectively wamejielimisha kwa njia ya kutosha na kuyaelewa. Lakini kuna wengine pia hata kwenye bunge la kitaifa, lakini wengi kwenye bunge ya bunge gatuzi, ambayo mjadala unaweza kawa unaendelea, na hata wakati wa kupiga kura decision ya hiyo mjadala wanauliza, sasa hii niseme la ama niseme ndio? Na niseme la, hakuuliza niseme la kwa nini ama ndio kwa nini, kusema tu hata hajui nini imeendelea, amezurutisha tuseme awe ndani ya bunge apige kura. Lakini labda hiyo sio kwamba ni ukosefu wa kuwa na shahada. Labda alikuwa na shughuli nyingi nje, hana time ya kufuatilia mambo ya bunge. Kuna wajumbe wengi ambao ni wafanyabiashara pia, ama kuna siku hii inawezekana kwamba alikuwa na vitu vingine vya kufanya, to be generous niseme. Lakini kwa jumla inachotakikana kwa bunge la kitaifa na bunge gatuzi ni kwamba wana uwezo ya kufanya oversight, yani kusimamia mambo ambayo inaendelea kwenye taifa nzima. Na hiyo huwezi kuyafanya bila kuelewa, bila kusoma na kuelewa. Kuambiwa tu haitatosha, kwa sababu kuna vitu vingi ambavyo vinaandikwa, viko kwenye mtandao wa bunge, ambavyo lazima uwe na wakati wa kuvisoma, kuvielewa, kuuliza na nini. Ndio ukiingia kwenye bunge ni kweli unaweza ukatimiza hilo jukumu la kusimamia la oversight. Lakini pia kuna majukumu mengine kwenye bunge. Kuna ile ya nasema kuna ile ya kusimamia, ile ya kutetea this representation oversight, na tuseme nisungumze kidogo kwa kutetea. Ndio wanaweza kutetea bila kujali kusoma. Unajua matatizo ya watu wako kwenye eneo bunge ama eneo la kura ambao wanasimamia, unaweza kuyaeleza kwa urahisi hata bila kusoma chochote, kwa sababu hapo ndio naishi, unaisikia kila siku. Na labda wanaweza wakasikia yale ambao anasema itafanya na waende ukawaelezee. Lakini vizuri kujua ni nini kweli sheria inasema. Sio tu kwa jumla, not just in total, generally, iwe specific, iwe na kujua vipengee kwamba kwenye hivi vipengee kuna mapendekezo ambayo inatusaidia mambo hatusaidia watu wangu. Hiyo ni muhimu sana, lazima uwe na uwezo wa kuisoma. Lakini kweli kwamba si shahada tu ambayo inatakikana. Na mara nyingi tukiingia kwenye mjadala kama huu, tusungumzia mambo ya shahada kiundani, wengine watadhani hakuna kitu kingine chochote ambacho cha muhimu. Kwenye tuliko Kenya saa hii, mambo ya maadili maybe labda ndio ya muhimu kuliko vitu vingine vyote. Unaweza kuwa na shahada na unaweza kuwa na mzamili's masters, right? Na PhD zote unaweza kuwa nazo, lakini kama huna maadili haisaidii hata kidogo. Lakini maadili si kitu anachopata ukienda shule, anachopatiwa shahada. Ndio unaweza kuwa umesomea values na nini vitu kama, lakini maadili yako mwenyewe si kitu ambacho napata shule. Ni kitu ambacho labda wewe kiundani, roho yangu ya conscience yako mwenyewe inakusaidia kujua kwamba hili ni lizuri, hili ni libaya, hili ni la kufanya, hili si la kufanya, hili la kutamka, hili si la kutamka. Na kwenye siasa yetu na hali ya maendeleo yetu tulio nayo, naona mambo ambayo kipao mbele ni mambo kuhusu mambo ya ufisadi, kwa mfano wizi wa rasilimali ya umma. Kuna wengi ambao hawafuati sheria ambazo zinapitishwa ama upande wa judiciary kwa mahakama hawafuati. Maadili yao iko chini sana. Ni hapo nadhani ndipo Kenya inataka sana ipate njia ya kuileta kwenye, sio tu kwenye mjadala, lakini kwenye maisha yetu, kwenye kazi tunayofanya na nini. Lakini hakuna njia rahisi ya kulazimisha mtu awe na maadili fulani, isipokuwa kusema kuna sheria, na ukikiuka sheria utapeleka mahakamani na hukumiwa. Labda hiyo itasaidia watu wetu kurudi kwenye laini. Sio kwamba anataka, lakini unajua nisipokaa kwenye laini inavyotakikana, huenda ikawa nikapeleka mahakamani, you could be disciplined by the courts. Lakini ni kweli kwamba sio tu hivyo, ni vizuri tuwe na uwezo kufikiria kwa upana sana haya masuala ambayo tunayazungumzia.
Naam. Tukisalia tu kwenye haya masuala ya viongozi, sasa hivi ni kwamba ni maandalizi ambayo yanaendelea kabla ule uchaguzi mkuu wa mwaka 2022. Tume ya IBC yenyewe inajiandaa, wanasiasa wenyewe wanajiandaa, na tunapoangazia kuhusu wanasiasa, kumekuwa na hili swala la siasa za kimaeneo ambalo limekuwa limekithiri humu nchini, na hususan tunapoangazia eneo la magharibi mwa nchi na hata eneo la Mlima Kenya, ni kwamba kumekuwa na migawanyiko. Unaona ya kwamba kuna ule upande ambao unaegemea upande huu, upande mwingine uko upande ule. Pengine athari kwa lile eneo ni ipi kwa kuwa na viongozi ambao ndio wanatoka katika eneo moja lakini wamegawanyika? Athari ni ipi?
Athari kubwa, kwa mfano nizungumzie juu eneo la magharibi, lakini na mawazo pia, maoni yangu na kuhusu eneo la Mlima wa Kenya. Lakini tunazungumzia eneo la magharibi. Athari ni kwamba wajua, tangu tupate uhuru, tumeona kwamba watu wa magharibi wanapigia kura karibu kila mtu ambaye anasimama kura. Yani kila mtu ana mawazo yake na maoni yake. Yani wana hali ya demokrasia ambayo inazidi sasa. Kuna nchi duniani ambayo ina demokrasia ya aina ile ambayo tunayo magharibi, kwamba kila mtu anaweza njia yake, anasema ni haki yangu ya kidemokrasia kuchagua ni nani nataka. If you have mkiwa na presidential candidates 15, na hakika kwamba wote watapata kura fulani eneo magharibi. Hata ya hali kama hiyo ni kwamba hamwezi kukaa na kusikizana kwamba vitu vya muhimu vinavyotukumba sisi kama wakazi kwa jumla, wakazi jumla wa eneo la magharibi ni hivi na vile, kwamba kwa mfano inaweza ikawa ukosefu wa ajira, factory zetu hazifanyi kazi, ukosefu wa nafasi za watu binafsi kujenga familia zao, ukosefu wa huduma za muhimu ambayo tunataka kwa kusikizana kusema kwenye hivi vyama vya kisiasa tunavyo, ni chama hiki kinachoweza kwenda kututetea kikamilifu. Lakini kila mtu akienda kivyake, wajua kutetea utetezi wa maana ni kuwa na watu, kuwa na wingi wa watu ambao wako wanafuata huo msukumo wa hilo swala. Na watu, kila mtu akienda zake, itaonekana kwamba labda viongozi wanazungumza na wakiangalia nyuma hawana watu nyuma yao ambao wanakubaliana nao. Hiyo ndio hatari kubwa sana kwa watu wa magharibi. Magharibi tuna matatizo mengi. Factories zetu hazifanyi siku hizi. Na sisi tuko kwenye eneo muhimu la miwa ya kusiaga sukari. Tulikuwa na hii factory ambayo ilikuwa ya kipekee Kenya nzima, na East Africa ilikuwa labda hiyo na nyingine pili tu, nyingine ilikuwa Tanzania, ya kutengeneza karatasi za kila aina ya pan paper ambayo ilianguka miaka kadha iliyopita, na kwenye hali ya kujaribu kuifufua tukapata tena ukora mwingine ndani kwenye huo mchakato ambao ulitumiwa kupata yule ambayo alinunua mwishowe. Na sasa unaona kuna mjadala kali kuhusu ni hali gani ambayo tutatumia kufufua mumias kwa mfano. Kila mtu wa magharibi, kila kiongozi wa magharibi, na nadhani kila mtu wa magharibi angependa mumias ifufuliwe, lakini pia wana historia kwamba sio tu kuambia mumias haikuwa tu imefufuliwa, ilikuwa imejiunda na ikawa the most important factory labda hapa Kenya, efficient. Ilikuwa inatupatia karibu asilimia 60 ya sukari yote ambayo Kenya inatumia. Ilikuwa kubwa. Sekta ya sukari kwa jumla inasaidia watu karibu milioni 6, kwa sababu kwa hivyo hiyo ni sekta muhimu sana. Lakini kwenye hiyo hali ambayo ilikuwa ni muhimu, vitu vikaanza kufanyika ambavyo ni ukosefu wa maadili, ni kukiuka sheria, impunity, na vitu vingine, na mwishowe ikaanguka. Hakuna mtu ambaye 20 years ago angalisema kwamba mumias inaweza ikaanguka, kwa sababu ilikuwa inafanya vizuri, ilikuwa imepanua product zake, sukari, industrial alcohol ile kutumia kwa factories, ilikuwa ina brand ya maji na inatoa stima. It was a big diversified factory, na wizi ukawa ndani kabisa. Wizi wa waliosimamia, wizi wa wanasiasa wanaofanya kelele kubwa sana kuhusu mumias. Huo ukosefu wa maadili umetupeleka tuliko. Ndio sababu hata kwa sasa kwenye huu mchakato wa kuifufua mara nyingine radha, watu wengi wanahofia kwamba labda tunadanganywa, labda hii sio yale ambayo itafanyika. Wakisema tuachie huyu atangaza auze, na hawajui itakuwa ukiuza itakuwa kuuza kama ile ya pan paper ambayo sasa badala ya kutengeneza karatasi it's just go down, ambayo sijui vitu gani vinawekwa huko ndani ama nini. Watu wana haki ya kutokubali kwa urahisi.
Na pengine mwelekeo ni upi kuhusiana na kufufua hicho kiwanda? Manake kumekuwa na shinikizo za kuwaruhusu wale wawekezaji wa kibinafsi, lakini pia kuna yule mwekezaji ambaye alikuwa amejitokeza, kukatokea matatizo ama maswali kuhusiana na uwazi uliotumika katika kutoa ile tenda. Je, mfumo unaostahili ni upi katika kufufua kiwanda hiki?
Kwamba tuwe na kitu cha kwanza, tuwe na uwazi kwenye yale ambayo inafanyika. Tukubali kuwa watakuwa na mjadala na maoni tofauti, lakini mwishowe tukiwa tuna lengo, tutajua kwamba tumefuata njia ambayo ina uwazi. Tumesikiza wale ambao wanapinga ama na mawazo tofauti wamesema. Tumetafuta suluhisho kwenye hizo pingamizi zao, na pamoja na kusema tulikuwa na public participation ya kutosha. Na mtu ambaye anauziwa, kama tenda iko uwazi, mtajua historia yake, yale ambayo amefanya sehemu tofauti, uwezo wake wa kifedha kuifanya, mipango yake ambayo wajua kufanya tenda unasema yale ungependa kufanya. Tutaangalia ni vitu gani wangependa kufanya, na hiyo ndio njia moja ya kusaidia kupata mtu ambaye akichukua mtu ama kampuni ikinunua ama ikikodisha, sijui itakuwa ipi, Manyara Sugar Company, unaweza kuwa na confidence, unaweza kuwa na ujasiri kwamba labda lengo zetu zitatumizwa. Haiwezi kuwa kwamba kuna wale ambao wanaelewa waambie watu sisi ndio tunajua. Hakuna mtu ambaye anajua. Wanajua ni wengi, ni mamilioni. Sisi ndio tunaelewa, mtuamini, sisi tunajua la kufanya, tunajua linalofanya. Ni sisi ambao tunatetea wakulima na wengine kuliko watu wengine. Hakuna kiongozi yoyote hata mmoja eneo hapa Kenya ama eneo la magharibi lenyewe ambaye hataki Mumias ifufuliwe, ambaye hataki wakulima turudi kwenye hali ambayo tulikuwa nayo, ambao wakulima wetu walikuwa sasa wamejiendelesha vizuri sana. Tulikuwa na development zingine, kwa mfano kupata mikopo ilikuwa rahisi, unaweza kupata mkopo kwa benki, na lile agano lako na kampuni ndio security yako. Tulikuwa na uwezo kukopa kwa elimu, mahitaji ya wanafunzi, wazazi walikuwa nakopa. Na pia tulikuwa na sako ambayo ilikuwa one of the biggest SACCOs, ambayo ilikuwa sasa imeanza kutoa mikopo directly kwa wakulima wao, na ambayo Manyara Company yenyewe ndiyo iliangusha. Kwa hivyo ni huu ukosefu wa maadili ndio ufanya watu wengi kuwa na wasiwasi jingi. Lakini na hakika kwamba kwenye hii kelele yote ya maoni tofauti, inawezekana kutoa yale ambayo inajenga, most constructive suggestions. Ndio watu watulie kwamba wameangalia kwenye hii harakati ya kuchagua ni nani atakaye ongoza kufufua kwa Mias, wamesikiza haya maoni yote. Wale ambao sasa wanadhani is a waste of time ama ni watu ambao hawataki fufuliwe ndio wanatoa upingamizi, hiyo ni ukosefu wa uwazi. Lazima transparency ni ya muhimu sana.
Tuzungumze kuhusiana na mkulima, manake wengi wanaposikia kuhusiana na kiwanda cha Mumias kimetajwa, ndio tunafahamu ya kwamba kuna athari, kuna wale wakulima ambao wameathirika. Lakini kama kiongozi ambaye umekuwa ukizuru, umezungumza na wananchi, taswira kamili ni ipi kutokana na kusambaratika kwa viwanda hivi? Wakulima wameathirika katika kiwango kipi? Manake wengi wanasikia tu kwenye runinga ya kwamba wakulima wameathirika, lakini hali halisi ni ipi?
Wakulima wameathirika kwenye hali ambayo hata ni ngumu kuizungumzia. Kwanza kuna wale ambao hawakuwa wamelipwa wakati Mumias ilifunga factory, na hapa katikati serikali itoa pesa kidogo, wengine wakalipwa, wakasema wale ambao madai yao haizidi kiwango fulani watalipwa kiasi fulani, wengine hawajalipwa. Sasa zingine wanasema toa stakabadhi, na wajua sasa hali ya maisha ya mashinani, hatuna mahali ambapo stakabadhi zinaweka kamili. Labda silikuwa mahali, labda zimechomeka, labda panya imekula, labda nini, watoto wamecheza, huwezi kujua, na huna stakabadhi. Wengi wamepoteza. Imeleta hali ya ufukara kwenye boma za wale wakulima ambao walikuwa wa miwa, Mumias zone. Ikawa na stress ya kila aina kwenye familia za watu. Kwa hivyo hali hiyo ilileta ukisema hata ufukara labda watu hawataelewa, ukosefu kabisa wa uwezo wa kulinda familia zao. Na ni muhimu, kwa mfano mimi kama mjumbe wa Nambale iko chini ya Manyara Sugar Zone, na kuna wenzangu ambao kwenye sehemu tofauti, hasa wale ambao Mumias iko Kakamega lakini karibu sana na Busia, na miwa yetu ilikuwa ikiingia Mumias. Tumefikia wakati ambapo hata hii school fees ya shilingi 500 kulipa ama 2000 kulipa kwa tamu mzima ni kitu kubwa sana. Sasa tunajaribu kutumia CDF bursaries, na watoto ni wengi. Mimi na zaidi ya 12,000 wale ambao wanangojea tu bursary ya CDF 12,000 kwa shule za upili, na kuna colleges and universities labda 4,500 namna hii. So together is about 17,000-18,000 students. Hatuna pesa za kutosha of 32 million shillings peke yake kwenye CDF kutumia kwa bursary na vitu vingine ambavyo vinaendelesha masomo, na kuna zingine pia za ujenzi na nini. Lakini hiyo haitoshi, na unaona mzazi ambaye anaheshimika amekuja kwako asubuhi, anataka asaidiwe kwa school fees, anamuuliza shilingi ngapi zimebaki. Tulikuwa na deni 2,000, nilipeleka 300, sasa naidai 1,700, lakini mtu ameniahidi kuletea 200, sasa kio kinaweza kunisaidia 1,500. Naona kwenye hali kama hiyo, mtu ambayo ana heshima zake, ameacha vile ile kazi anafanya, ametembea kwa mguu, amechukua pikipiki, amefika kwako, hiyo sio rahisi. Haikuwa namna hiyo. Ili kulikuwa na hali ambao sasa watu walikuwa wanajitegemea. Ukikutana na watu mnasalimiana tu, hakuna kitu cha kusema ati niachie, huwezi kuniacha tu hiyo ndio tamko ambao sisi wanasiasa tunasikia. Kwa hivyo the whole area. Lakini wakulima walifanya, wakulima wengi walisema hatuwezi kuendelea kungojea mumias ikizidi kututesa inavyotutesa. Wengi wakajitoa kwenye ukulima wa miwa, wakaingia kwenye mazao mengine. Na tofauti ni kwamba ukulima wa miwa ndio ukulima ambao ndio sekta ambayo ilikuwa imejipangwa vizuri sana, imepangwa vizuri sana. Kwamba mazao yako, miwa yako inakatwa, inapelekwa kwenye factory, na transport ambayo factory imepanga, na wewe mwenyewe kutoka wakati inayokatwa unangojea tu pesa kuingia kwa bank. Haya mazao mengine, ukipanda mahindi, ni wewe mwenyewe lazima utafute soko ya mahindi, na fluctuations, yani bei ya mahindi huenda juu chini
mara kwa mara, na inatakana kwamba uiweke kwa muda mrefu, labda miezi 3-4 baada ya kuivuna, ndio sasa waanze kuona bei ambayo ukiuza kwa hiyo bei inaweza ikakurudishia zile pesa ulizotumia, production cost, na kupatia faida juu yake kidogo. Lakini watu wengi hawana uwezo wa kutumia pesa kwa mazao kama hayo, kuipanda, kununua mbolea na vitu vingine, na tena ukae nao miezi 3 miezi 4, wana haja kwa haraka kupata pesa. Na unakuta watu ambao wanakuja kununua wakati huo kwa bei ya chini sana, ambayo hata haiwezi kulipa labor costs ambazo ulitumia. Kwa hiyo kwa sababu mazao mengine haiko na soko ambao iko organized, hata wale ambao wamepindua kuingia kwenye hawa mazao wangali kwenye hali ya ufukara. Yeah. Naam, kumaanisha kwamba hali ni mbaya na ni hali ambayo inastahili kushughulikiwa hivi karibuni. Na tunaangalia kwamba siasa za mwaka 2022 zimeshika kasi, na siasa zenyewe zimetoswa katika lile swala la Mumias na kufufua. Kuna matumaini kabla ya mwaka 2022 kwa mambo kuwa sawa, ama tunatarajia kwamba hii athari ya siasa itazidi kufanya mambo yawe magumu zaidi kwa yule mkulima?
Nadhani kuna muda wa kutosha, kama ni mambo ya negotiation na kutafuta nani anaweza kuja akaanza kuifufua, lakini hatuna muda wa kutosha. Hata tukipata yule ambaye ndio tunataka, ambaye kila mtu anasema huyo ndio anatosha, kuifufua iwe na ilete tofauti ya kutosha kabla ya kura. Kwa sababu gani? Ni kwa sababu wale ambao walijitoa kwenye ukuzaji wa miwa lazima warudi tena, watengeneze mashamba yao, wapande. Itachukua labda 14 months, 18 months ile ya kwanza, the new varieties hizi, na mwishowe na wale ambao kuna wengine ambao wana kandarasi, wana contracts na watu ambao walichukua mashamba yao kutumia kwa njia moja nyingine, ama hata kupanda miwa wenyewe, wale ambao wamechukua kandarasi. Hizo transitions kutoka kwa kukodisha watu ujiletee mwenyewe ama kutengeneza shamba lako, uwe tayari, itachukua muda kidogo, lakini inatuletea watu hope, yani matumaini mema kwamba hata nisipokuwa tayari baada ya mwaka moja, sasa tuko kwenye hali ya kufufua hii sekta, na miaka ijayo itakuwa labda nzuri, hata iwe nzuri kuliko ile ya zamani. Inategemea. Kwa hivyo mimi nadhani kwamba si kitu ambacho watu wawe na matumaini kwamba kabla ya kura tutakuwa tumefufua mumiasi endelea. Inawezekana, lakini haitakuwa haijashika moto kabisa, haijashika kasi, kwa sababu watu ni wengi kwenye sehemu tofauti. Itachukua muda kuwa convinced, kuamini kwamba kweli yale ambayo tumeambiwa yamefanyika ndio imefanyika. Kwa hivyo that's trust, kuleta trust, kurudisha trust kwa watu inachukua muda.
Ni hatua nyingi ambazo zitakuwa zinafuatwa kabla ya kufufuliwa, wale wakulima kujipanga, na tunatumai ya kwamba zile siasa zilizoko pale pengine matumaini yatapatikana hivi karibuni. Na pengine tunapoelekea kutamatisha, ningependa tuzungumze kuhusiana na uchaguzi mkuu wa mwaka 2022, tukisalia tu kwenye hili swala la siasa za kimaeneo, na pengine tathmini yako kuhusiana na ile miungano ambayo imekuwa ikishuhudiwa hivi majuzi. Je, ni miungano ambayo tunatarajia kwamba itadumu hadi mwaka 2022, ama kwa sasa hivi Wakenya wawe tu tayari ya kwamba wiki yoyote jambo laweza kubadilika? Na pengine unapoangalia wakati ambapo NASA ilijiunga, tukawa na viongozi kutoka maeneo mbalimbali, siri ya ushindi katika urais ni viongozi kutoka yale maeneo kuungana pamoja, ama ni yale maeneo yenyewe kusema ya kwamba tuna idadi kubwa ya watu, hivyo basi tumchague kiongozi kutoka upande wetu?
Pahali tulipo Kenya ni kwamba kwa uchaguzi mkuu, kwa yule ambaye angependa kushinda kama rais lazima awe ana wenzake ambao kwenye what do you call it, muungano muungano moja. Kwa hivyo ndio apate kura zinazostahili kwanza. Na kura zinazostahili ni kwamba ushinde 50%, na hata ukiwa na mtu mmoja juu inatosha, na ushinde pia kwenye counties 24. Yani hiyo inaonyesha kwamba uwe na wenzako kwenye muungano ambao watakusaidia kuvutia, kuleta kura, na pia wawe kwenye eneo tofauti. Haitoshi kwamba umeshinda mahali moja in one county 100% ama counties town 100%, na zingine 19 hujapata 25% ambayo inatakikana. Huo muungano unasaidia kuleta kila mtu chini ya umbrella moja wakati wa kura. Lakini kumbuka, tangu 2013 miungano ambayo imeshinda haikuwa ile ambayo ilikuwa imeundwa tuseme zaidi ya mwaka moja na nusu kabla ya kura. In 2013, 2017 hii miungano ilikuja pamoja less than 6 months before elections. Kwa hivyo sasa hivi ni wakati wa kutafutana, kujadili, kusemezana baadhi ya viongozi wenyewe na kusikiza maoni ya wananchi wao. Wanakubali muungano ambao una fulani na fulani ndani, ama ambao hauna nani ndani, vitu kama hivyo. Na hivi sasa tunavyozungumza, bila kusema, ninajua yale ambayo yanaendelea ni mengi nayo yaendelea. Naisikia tu mara kwa mara. Saa zingine tunakaa na mahali ambapo tunaweza tukajadili kiundani kidogo, wale ambao na information ndani. Watu wako busy sana, wako na kazi ngumu sana ya kuzungumza, kuelewana, kusikizana lengo zao ziwe zipi, kusemezana kwamba hata tukija pamoja ni vitu gani lazima tuepuke ambayo imetuharibia kwenye hii miungano nyingine ambayo tumekuwa nayo. Na unajua hii miungano yote, kila muungano inadumu tu kwa kura moja, kwa cycle ya kura moja. Baadaye, kwa sababu kuna realities mpya, watu wanaangalia tena kuingiza wengine ambao hawakuwa ndani, labda kuachilia wengine ambao wangependa kutoka watoke. Tulikuwa na code, kwa mfano kwanza tulikuwa na ODM pia ilikuwa muungano during 2007 elections. Haikuwa tu chama moja, ilikuwa ni muungano siku hizo. Na tukawa na nadhani ilikuwa muungano wa NAC, wale ambao walijiunga around NAC. Na 2013 tukawa na code na PNU nadhani, I'm forgetting that. Na 2017 tukawa na NASA na vyama ambavyo baadaye vilikuwa Jubilee. Sasa safari hii ni election mpya, itakuwa miungano tofauti. Tuna One Kenya, umesikia One Kenya Alliance, lakini One Kenya Alliance si muungano rasmi, kwa sababu hawana agano baina yao.
Hakuna agano rasmi.
Lakini tukiendelea mbele, wakiendelea kuzungumza na kubaliana, labda tutakuwa na agano rasmi. Kuna Jubilee ambayo ilikuwa ni muungano, lakini sasa naona Jubilee imezoroteka sana, ingawa iko kwa jina. There's no Jubilee active on the ground kama NASA. Tuna NASA legally, tuna NASA, lakini hakuna NASA on the ground kabisa. na Jubilee sasa imeenda upande huo pia. Kwa hivyo miungano mpya itafanywa na kuna muda wa kutosha kwa miungano mpya. Walikuwa wakingoja kwamba hii BBI itapita ama haitapita. Ikipita ina implication fulani kwa miungano, na isipopita pia ina somo fulani kwa miungano.
Naam, pengine kwa dakika moja tunapotamatisha, kauli yako ama ujumbe wako kwa wale viongozi ambao sasa hivi kuna miungano ambayo inazidi kupikwa pale, lakini bado kuna wananchi. Ni vipi ambavyo wanasiasa watapiga siasa za kimaeneo, lakini kwa wakati mmoja wahakikisha kwamba wananchi wameungana kabla ule uchaguzi na hata baada?
Message yangu ni hii kwamba cha muhimu lazima tuwe na sera. Kenya iko kwenye hali mbaya kiuchumi. Hiyo tunajua, wananchi nasikia kila pahali, Mlima Kenya, Lake Region, Magharibi na Pwani, kila mahali watu nalia ukosefu wa ajira, ukosefu wa mapato, hali ya ufukara imezidi kila mahali. Kwa hivyo ni lazima tuangazie, viongozi wote waangazie ni nini watafanya kufufua uchumi wetu. Waelezee wananchi, waelewe, na ningeambia wananchi kwamba cha muhimu sio siasa peke yake, cha muhimu ni uchumi. Kwa sababu ni mwishowe wanasiasa wakishamaliza kura zao, wamepata kazi zao na nini, wewe nyumbani unalisha familia yao, unataka waende hospitali, watoto waende hospitali, mama anaenda kujifungua, na kuna vitu vingi ambavyo vya muhimu, personal things zako mwenyewe. Kwa hivyo uchumi ni kitu ya muhimu. Mimi ningesema kwamba kwenye hii harakati ya kutafuta new coalitions, miungano mpya, tuseme ni haja gani za kitaifa, what needs za kitaifa tunayo, waelewe vizuri, ndio tutaleta watu pamoja kulingana na yale ambao wanatumaini kwamba watasaidika. Na kwa hivi sasa kwa upande wa Magharibi kwa mfano, hali ya uchumi ni mbaya zaidi. Lazima tuje pamoja tukifikiria sio tu kufufua zile factor tunazo, lakini kuna njia nyingine nyingi ya kujipanga na kuleta kutafuta njia za kupata mapato kwa watu wengi at the same time. Zile transformative things kwa Kiswahili, ile ambayo sijui anasemaje kwa Kiswahili transformation, ile ambayo itabadilisha jinsi tunavyoishi, jinsi tunavyotafuta pesa zetu, sio tu kwa hizo factories za muhimu sana, zinatusaidia kupata capital. Kuna njia mbadala ya kuzifanya.
Naam, shukran sana. Bila shaka mtazamaji, tumekuwa tukizungumza naye Sakwa Bunyasi ambaye ni mbunge wa Nambale. Bila shaka tumeangazia mengi kabisa, ikiwemo kuhusiana na mikakati ambayo imewekwa katika kuhakikisha kwamba viwanda ambavyo vimedidimia katika eneo la magharibi mwa nchi vimefufuliwa ili kuwapa wananchi ama wale wakulima afueni. Na vile mtazamaji, tumeangazia hali ya kisiasa humu nchini, siasa za kimaeneo, na hata kuhakikisha kwamba hata baada ya siasa bado Wakenya wanasalia wakiwa wameungana. Na hivyo basi kufikia hapo, mie sina la ziada ila kutamatisha tamrini. Shukran sana kwa wote waliotazama. Naitwa Nancy Okware na mfasiri wa lugha ya ishara ni Byron Abuli. Taarifa zaidi utakuwa unazipata mwendo wa saa 7 kwa lugha ya Kimombo. Kwa heri.
Kiswahili is difficult to express complex issues. Very difficult. Thank you very much, Mr. Kware.
Tuingie huko.
Next on.
Wewe ushapata kazi, unasahau ulikotoka.
Mama namchukia.
Wewe ulikuja hapa kula ama ulikuja hapa kufanya kazi?
Nilipanga pesa, mkuja hapa kwa nini? Kwa ofisi kushinda mmeongea about Arsenal.
Tushamaliza. Kwani ni wewe nini wewe?
Mimi kwanza hapa hivi cheki. Hapa ni wapi? If you're in the office you work. When we are out there, sisi ni maarifu.
Yaani ulipokuja hapo kutaka kazi, mikono ilikuwa nyuma kama ilionyeshewa. Lakini sasa hizi uanza maringo.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
From now on, you have nothing to do with him.
What are you talking about? I'm his father.
Hey!
What are you doing?
What are you doing? You're gonna hurt him.
Tomorrow, I'm taking him back to San Francisco. You won't ever see him again.
What's come over you? What are you talking about?
Joshua, is this what you're leaving for me?
Tashong and Aiching, man and wife. I hope you have a happy life together, grow old, and have beautiful children.
Next on.
Binadamu ambaye hana tabia nzuri ni kama shamba isiyokuwa na mazao. Na aibu si kwa mtu kuwa fukara, bali aibu ni kwa mtu kukosa tabia njema.
Ndo mtu anajiita yeye ni Muislamu, lakini pamoja na Uislamu wake unamkuta huyu ana tabia chafu, ana tabia mbaya.
Rahman ya Rahman, sa'idni ya Rahman, ishrah sadri Qur'an, imla qalbi Qur'an, wa asli hayati Qur'an.
Next on.
Tumemsua watu watatu. Asidhani kazi stem atatoboa. Guy. That's all you can say.
Jazz anajua.
Jazz will be jazzed about it. See what I did there?
Let her through. Unajua masida yetu ilianza ile wakati nyo mwanamke alikujaga kwa maisha yetu. Mambo yetu sasa ikaanza kwenda kukurukakara. Mnaweza tuhitaji?
Sana.
Tiffany, I need to reach Chris.
What will happen to Glenn and Eric?
Well, that's my business.
Good, as Chris is mine.
Nancy, you know you're the mother of chaos. We are here because of you.
No, we are here because of your identity crisis.
Si dwe. Mimi Nancy haujai nikulisa wala kukulisa watoto wangu wala kuwasomesha.
Are you sure?
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, tip.
It is a great pleasure to be back on KBC Channel 1.
The greatest rally in the world is back in Kenya. Catch all the action of WRC Safari Rally live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1 from 24th to 27th June. See the world's best drivers navigate their machines on Kenya's rough terrain at breakneck speeds. Experience the thrills, adrenaline, drama and excitement as man and machine do battle. Don't miss out. WRC Safari Rally, live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
So what is my number one favorite football team? Ingwe. My number one meal? Engoho Nendevusuma. What is your number one?
Eldoret, Chamge, get ready.
The Insurance Open Day is here. The Insurance Regulatory Authority, in partnership with the County Government of Uasin Gishu, is bringing the insurance message to you. Join us from 16 to 18 June 2021 at the Central Primary School grounds and learn about insurance. Insurance companies and other financial regulators like the Retirement Benefits and the Capital Markets Authorities will be present to educate you on the various financial services and products available in the market. IRA officers will be present to address any concerns and clarifications on your insurance policies. Entry is free and all Ministry of Health COVID-19 protocols and guidelines will be observed. Get to your rate. IRA, promoting insurance, protecting the insured.
Kupata skiza tune ya usifadhaishwe, dial star 811, star 815 hash.
Usifadhaishwe na mafanikio ya wengine ukihisi kwamba maisha yako hayana maana. Kumbuka, wengi huzungumzia tu mafanikio yao na si changamoto walizozipitia na ni mara ngapi walianguka. Tia bidii, muda wako utafika.
Ili kupata skiza tune hiyo ya usifadhaishwe kwa simu yako, dial star 811 star 815 hash, star 811 star 815 hash.
Bwana Motiso, pikipiki yako ndio hii. Uko shwani yangu. Hii pikipiki ni, unakumbuka uniekelea the lowest unique bid yako ilikuwa ngapi? 18 shillings. Na unajua kuendesha hii gari? Kidogo. Haya, kitoko yako shika helmet, kifungu yako, chomoka na mali yako.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bid yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bid yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bid ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Did you know that the policy document is evidence of the existence of an insurance contract between you and your insurance company? It is important to know the terms and conditions of your insurance policy. Make sure you obtain, read, and understand the terms and conditions of the policy document. Now you know. IRA, promoting insurance, protecting the insured.
Good afternoon. Thank you for keeping it KBC Channel 1. This is the lunchtime news on this 17th day, the month of June 2021. Thursday it is, and we give more focus on business news. Do interact with us on our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. My name is Irene Mchuma Odim. On sign language interpretation, we have Lucy Mwaura. Top story this afternoon, Kikuyu Council of Elders is set to sanctify the coronation of National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi as Mount Kenya spokesperson. According to the council's patron, Kongo Muigai, the sanctification at Mount Kenya Shrine in Narumoru will entail presenting the spokesperson to God in accordance with traditions of the Agikuyu.
Barely a month after the National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi was installed as the Mount Kenya region political spokesperson, the Kikuyu Council of Elders is set to sanctify the spokesperson at the Reverend Mount Kenya Shrine in Narumoru, Nyeri County on Saturday, June 26th. The council's patron Kongo Muigai says Speaker Muturi will be presented to God in line with Kikuyu tradition at the shrine located at the foothills of Mount Kenya.
Na hiyo itafanywa na watu wetu wazee wale wanafanyanga hiyo kazi ya maombi, wanaitwa gongoni. Na mimi nawaalika wote kwa sababu ni wengi. Hata wale wengine, mtu yote ambaye anasikia ako na jukumu ya kuomba akuje siku hiyo.
Meanwhile, National Assembly Deputy Minority Leader and also Wiper Party Organizing Secretary Robert Mboi now claims the president was quoted out of context on the NASA support. The Kathiani MP says the president was calling on politicians to avoid divisive politics.
I want to say that I think the president was taken out of context. I was in the meeting, and I have found people are very interesting. There are people who are not in that meeting who know more about what was happening in the meeting than those of us who are there. Because when you go into State House, you leave your phones and you leave your phones outside. So I don't know who is this that is coming up with those stories.
Elsewhere in Kiambaa, Party of National Unity PNU has thrown its weight behind the Jubilee's candidate, Kareri Njama.
We are a party made of coalition. And that is why my sister here, Mheshimiwa Lucy, we have agreed to walk this journey together.
Kevin Washira, Channel 1 News.
One person has been killed in a hit and run accident near Maisha Mart supermarket in Kakamega town after she was hit by a lorry. Eyewitnesses say the lorry hit the rear end of a boda the woman was riding on and ran over her, killing her. The rider escaped unhurt.
The boda rider ferrying the woman said he tried to avoid the oncoming vehicle but was too late in his effort to avoid it.
Sisi tulikuwa tunatoka huko chini tukipata tukienda juu. Huyo jamaa lori akakuja huko kutoka huko juu. Nikaona tu akiacha hiyo laini akaingia huko. Nikaona amekuja side yangu na ako mbio. Nikajaribu kuepa niingie hii side ya huko hata niepe. Akawa ameshafika na nguvu akagonga na hii side. Sasa wakati ile tumetani hivi ikaingia na huko side ya mama. Ndio ikamgonga ikamtupa huko.
The driver of the lorry fled the scene of accident, but police cars nearby gave chase, blocking his lorry from all sides, after which they arrested him and took him to the police station.
Lori wanatoroka wameshikia pale Shiriji na wamekimbia nayo maaskari ndio wamezuia, then na raia wakipiga mawe. Then wamepitishia huko nyuma na maaskari imepelekwa polisi. Venye tunaongea hivi sasa hii lori imefika polisi.
Residents say a similar accident happened around the same area sometimes back, killing one.
Hizo tunaendelea vimekuwa kuna wakati tena tarehe kama hii na siku kama leo tena mzee Abdi kutoka Lurambi tena alikanyagwa hivi lori ilimtoa juu ya basikeli ikamkanyaga ikapasua kichwa tena ile lori ikafanya ikakimbia tena vile imekimbia sikia.
A section of residents in Kitengela has held demos over a state of a bridge connecting the area to the non-Kopir village. The residents say the bridge was swept away by flood. There haven't been any attempts by the local government to reconstruct it, and that situation, which they say now poses a danger to their lives.
Boda riders using this river crossing say the journey from one end to the other has become an extreme sport. They say the bridge which connects Kitengela town to Nunkupir village was swept away, leaving them desperate.
Mkaaji wa Nunkupir since 2007. Na ni hii Nunkupir tumeteseka sana kwa sababu ya hii daraja. Imewahi kitengenezwa mara kadhaa, saa hii imetengenezwa mara tatu. Last year ikapomoka.
They claim that they are losing their daily bread as passengers opt out of paying exorbitantly for a longer ride across the river. The 2-kilometer road was allegedly allocated 9 million shillings by the county government for tarmacking in 2018. The first contractor's contract was terminated over shoddy work, with the second contractor partly tarmacking the road, leaving the bridge unreconstructed.
Hii daraja tunashindwa kwamba kulikuwa na karabati mbeleni. Tukashindwa ilitolewa kwa nini? Hata ni heri ingekuwa hivyo mpaka wakati inakwenda kukamilika wananchi wakijisaidia wakisaidikika katika hiyo njia.
The bridge is critical as it connects neighboring areas to Kitengela Hospital, which is the only public hospital in the town. County Executive Committee member